All right, it being 5:30, I can mute. Some announcements. Save the date, fall special town meeting is expected to take place on Monday, November 3rd. And as always, a call for volunteers. Current openings are online on the town webpage under the volunteer tab. Item A, public comment. Is anybody here wishing to make a public comment? Anybody online? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to town manager updates.
All right, I know I sent out the announcement by email, but just a reminder that our new town planner, Chris Riley, begins his regular schedule starting on Monday. So I hope you join me in welcoming him. I would definitely, I have told him, talk with everyone, listen, and kind of spent his initial tenure just getting to know the issues. So if any of you want to reach out to him this first couple of weeks, that would be terrific, just to kind of get to know him, and he can hear from you on some of your priorities or concerns. With regard to conservation, we do have a couple of apparently what appear to be promising applicants. So we are scheduling a new round of interviews. So we're continuing to work on that. Next item is the recent Pentucket School Committee meeting. Wendy and I attended that last week and talked about anticipated next steps regarding paid school and the expectation of our hope that the district would submit a statement of interest to the MSBA next spring. And I think it was well received. It was a good discussion. They were familiar generally with the paid school conditions assessment, more so I think the West Newbury members, but I think the school committee was well aware that that work had been ongoing and had been shared with them ahead of time. One thing that I think is definitely worth noting, interesting aspect of the discussion, as I know you know, the statement of interest to the MSBA would need to be submitted by the district, not by the town. And there is MSBA can be expected to be looking to the district to confirm that whatever they're proposing is a priority of the district. And it is possible that the MSBA process would direct the district to look, in addition to looking at paid school in isolation, to looking at elementary education more district-wide. So there was, I think, some really interesting dialogue among Wendy and I and the school committee and the administration there. We have no idea what direction that's going to go, but I wanted to just raise that because what's already complex project could have some twists and turns as we go forward, because as you know, MSBA is going to require the district to look to do a detailed alternatives analysis, and they may require the district to look at some scenario or scenarios of possible consolidation of multiple elementary schools. They used during the discussion, the Pentucket administrators used as a kind of analogy when they went before MSBA several years ago, expecting to go in with a high school project, but then in the course of the process, it became clear that the middle school was expected to be 10 years behind. It was MSBA that kind of urged them to look at the shared campus. It worked out beautifully.
That was our intention at the beginning.
The districts?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Gotta go with the one, no, we're gonna fall the other.
Okay.
It was not a surprise.
Okay, well, but by the time I got here, it was actually, I think that the decision, they were in the alternatives analysis when I began. So the combined was still one of a couple of scenarios, but anyhow, so I just wanted to raise that because obviously in any scenario, this is going to be an enormous undertaking over the next several years, but it could be more than could implicate more than just the town of West Newbury. Wendy, anything to add?
Just, along those lines, if you remember, we were trying to revise the regional agreement, just the thought of not requiring one school per town was like a deal breaker. So, I mean, I think this could.
It was in preparation for something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. That would be interesting.
H Pipe State Crossing, as you've seen, if you've driven on Main Street this week, that's well underway. talked to Butch, a couple of times a day on that, and, it's going very well. They're, they're off to a good start, so we don't have a firm estimate of how long the project's gonna take. I do expect it's gonna extend past, Labor Day, but public safety and Butch are comfortable with that. Obviously, the traffic details will be there to make sure things go smoothly, and the specific areas that the contractor's working will be adjusted, around certain peak hours of, traffic into and out of the school. But certainly glad to get that underway, because as you know, there was some prospect that the whole thing might not start till after Labor Day, so thankfully we were able to get that underway. Common Street culverts, I included in the packet, some photos that's gone, really nicely. Butch is doing a great job, managing that. There was one, field change that they're recommending. And so that's been added for discussion on Monday night's Concom agenda. It's, anticipated to be pretty routine, but it is gonna need to be approved by the commission, so they added that for discussion Monday night prior to posting the agenda. It's to do with the kind of type of layered end. So Paul and Butch had a meeting out there this morning with lotus asparagus. Pickleball courts, the planning board voted to close the hearing on Tuesday night. They voted 5-0 in favor of the site plan. So that was a big step forward. The Concom had kept that public hearing open at my request, just in case there were any further changes to the site plan. That was at their hearing 2 weeks ago, so they meet Monday night. The expectation is that they would both close the hearing Monday night. And once both of those permits are issued and the appeals periods run, then we can move forward with actually getting started on work this fall. Next item, the Page School Telecom. As you know, there was some funding added to the warrant article to allow third-party review. That was completed, came back, as you saw in the packet, with a strong recommendation to go forward with the system as designed. So Caitlin's been working with the vendor, with Jonathan Seymour, to get that under contract, and ideally to get that going as soon as possible. Interestingly, the phone system completely failed about 3 weeks ago, to where they're actually no longer able to, it's actually not working. So it's good that we didn't lose more time, because this was a pretty urgent project. So Caitlin did confirm the contracting process with the state bid list, and was able to simply award the contract because all of the prices are vetted through the state procurement. Invasives contractor, we'll talk more about that when we get to the potential warrant article, but I did just want to let you know that I did meet with Butch, and I met with Brian Colleran on site earlier this week. Had a really good sidewalk out at River Bend, and continue to think that both he brings real value in terms of his technical, his ability and to treat the invasives in the field, but also we think he has something to add to continue kind of thinking about priority and strategy with regard to invasives management. So that's outlined in more detail in the draft warrant article request, but wanted to make you aware that he'd been on site. He didn't do any treatment. It was really just to view this areas he had treated, to understand why he had done it and the way he had done it, which was essentially along the trail and riverboat, and to what he described as to create a firewall between the invasives and the native species. So it's, it looks a little ugly, and we have had some comments about that, but that was done intentionally to basically prevent the further migration of the invasives into areas that are either uncontaminated or relatively less contaminated. And paving bid, we are out to bid right now, and I put the bid opening is September 5th, which is I think 2 weeks from tomorrow. The scope of roads to be expected to be paved is unchanged from what you had heard a couple of months ago, which was before you. And the objective is to continue to get those done this calendar year. That is obviously going to have something to do with how the bids come back, and if the prices are higher, we might, we'll see. But the objective continues to be the same roads that he had outlined when it was before you earlier this year. And then Church and Prospect water main replacement. This is another one we'll be talking further about when we get to the warrant article discussion. But in a nutshell, I mean, I don't know. You have a lot of written materials. I don't know how much you want me to go into that, but it's it's kind of a messy situation. We're working with Board of Water Commissioners to get that resolved, but essentially costs were incurred above budget without prior approval by the Board of Water Commissioners of a change order. And because my office and Jenny had received assurances early this year that the project was going to be within budget, and we went to long-term borrowing, even though the additional costs could easily have been absorbed within the authorized amount for the project, because the long-term debt has already been issued. That creates a significant challenge if the Water Commission accepts the change orders and if they approve the funds, because as of present, there is no appropriation for that amount other than the debt. So the options are to do this advance of funds in anticipation of reimbursement. So we can work with Department of Revenue and Council and Hilltop on that. So you'll talk more about that when you get to the warrant articles, but you can expect that to be before you. My guess is for action, not on September 4th, but at your September 18th meeting. The next step in the process is there's a Water Commission meeting September 9th, by which point David Howard has assured the Water Commission that they will have the true and final cost number. The only open cost items were some police details from non-local police departments that simply hadn't billed for their details yet. So David Howard represented that was the only variable as to why they haven't been able to give a true and final number right now. So, but there's a lot more to it, but that's it in a nutshell. That's it. And then in terms of other updates, I had just shared earlier this week the outreach that began this week for the updates to the capital planning process. So we've got a staff meeting second week of September, and we'll be on track for the November 1st to get the capital program updated for the upcoming budgeting cycle.
Moving on to action items. So A is review of nominations from the West Newbury Democratic Town Committee. We're bypassing that, right?
Bypassing that on for next week, I think.
Okay. Next item is review of application to serve on the Whittier Tech School Building Committee. Involved.
Kevin did say he was gonna come. I told him 6:15. So
Oh, okay.
he may be a little delayed, but
Well, why don't we pass over that? Next item is application for a one-day liquor license. It's Brian Doyle for West Newbury PTO.
we were gonna ask over that. Sure.
So it was in the packet though. Is that a current insurance in the packet?
They were gonna give us updated insurance. That's the last thing I heard from Brian. But I believe the plan was, or at least my understanding was that he was gonna attend it in person.
Okay, and it doesn't impact their schedule. It's not too before.
As long as that insurance comes in.
Okay, so I guess I didn't read it closely. I saw the insurance certificate in the packet and thought that that was valid. It's not.
They said I would get an updated one.
Okay,
So.
all right.
It says in the bottom for the Apple Harvest 2024 race.
Mhm.
Like I said, I guess I didn't read it closely enough. Okay. Special event permit, is that one on?
John said he would attend too, but guess what? He was told that.
Okay. How about item E, reconsider delegation of authority for oversight of budgeted expenses for the opioid abatement funds. So I guess last time we had thought that it would be easy for the town accountant to just absorb this, and in fact, it is not, so, I would like it to be somebody that kind of represents the select board rather than the board of health. So
Okay.
would it be all right for Rebecca to do it, do you think, since she's part of the working group?
Yeah, or, I mean, I could do it with her attending most of those meetings,
Yeah.
but that way, you know, at least, yeah, that would be fine.
That would be all right with you?
Sure, yeah,
All
yeah.
right, is that all right with you, Chris, Ross?
Yeah.
Okay. But,
Go on, that's fine.
all right, do we need to vote since we're delegating authority?
Since you voted it last time, I think it would be good to do
All right,
that.
Ross, this is your motion.
A motion.
Yeah.
I make a motion to delegate authority for oversight of the approved budget expenses for opioid abatement funds to Angus Jennings.
Is it Angus or Rebecca?
Me,
Right, second. All in favor?
It would have been funny, I could have been second, just let him hang in there.
No, that wouldn't be
So my
funny.
hesitation was I met with that group about the opioid thing. It's not on the agenda, but you could slide it in here if you don't want to.
No, it's not on the agenda.
Well, it's the opioid funds.
Yeah,
Okay,
if we need to meet, I mean, we voted on that already, if we need to change the vote, I think it should be an agenda item.
in the next meeting, if
Okay.
nothing else, just to give you an update of the conversation. Just see-
I think it was an update, could that just be? Or,
Oh, we're in action items, right?
okay, all right,
All right, to Wendy's point, they're looking for a vote, so it's for the
Yeah.
next agenda.
okay, all right,
And we did already vote, that's my
yeah.
biggest point. Okay, the next item is select board priorities and initiatives, do you think we have enough time to do that? I guess.
It's up to you, I mean, I'd be fine with, the reason, you know, there's always a kind of rationale of how things are ordered, and it felt like having that before you close the warrant would be good, because, you know, it seems like the warrant articles would ought to be reflected in those priorities, but it's however you want to manage the schedule, you know, that, you know, you could take that up later in the meeting, it's.
So what time, Max, you said Kevin was 6:15?
6:15, up to 6:15, and John may attend online too, so let's keep an eye on that debate survey.
All right, I just don't want to get into anything too meaty and then have that just hanging.
Good internet.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the priorities. Did anybody receive any follow-up after the meeting suggesting things that were on?
I didn't receive, but I had a couple that came to mind, so
Okay.
even if they're put on for like future, I just think it's good to kind of just doing some brainstorming. I think you resolved this, but you know, there was obviously at the last meeting, there was a resident during open comment who talked about potentially waterfall testing in Middle Pond. If the board's pretty clear that's not gonna happen, then I wouldn't put it on the list, but if that's something you want to like invite Paul in to talk about and to really have, I mean, we've had lengthy conversations about this, but if the board wants to do that, you know, we'll put that on a future agenda. Next one, this is something that, you know, to be honest, it's been 5 or 6 years since I've really had a real conversation about this, but every time I drive near Chris's house and my cell phone goes dead, it reminds me. So, back in my first year or two, I had a number of conversations with Mike Boutte at the time about the revenue opportunity of looking at, you know, cell on top of the water tank. And at the time, obviously, the tank was, you know, anticipated to be rebuilt. It's since been rebuilt. There is a dead spot there. I do think that is a revenue opportunity for the water department. And, you know, in Lethbridge, we had these on top of multiple water tanks. In fact, we had multiple carriers on top of individual water tanks, and the revenues it generates were significant. On the order of like $3,000 a month. So.
We put that out to bid a couple of times in the past.
Okay, did no one reply?
Yeah, because we had, well, just going back 20 years when we wrote the bylaw for the cell towers. But then move forward 10 years, they put it out, and what the suggestion was, you don't want the cell towers on it, you hire a contractor who owns it and they rent off of the town, so the town gains more revenue. And that's how the original proposal to bid was put out, and there were no responses. And there were two, one would have been the water tower and the other was at Page. At first they wanted it on the building was taken down. And then they talked about putting it in the DPW site. But there were no takers, because generally they prefer to have them on private property where one carrier puts in the pole and then sublets to the others.
Right, right,
So they get the advantage, they didn't want the municipality getting the advantage, so they did bid.
okay. So I just thought, that might be a good like future thing. It is something I would like to see the water department look at. Obviously, we're in a place of rising costs on water in particular. And if there's a opportunity to generate, pretty significant revenue without hitting the ratepayer, I think that's something that ought to be fully explored. So it's not something I've talked with Mark about. It's been a number of years since I've had a real, but it's something I have dealt with in prior jobs, in some detail, and it doesn't need to be that difficult. So I think if it's something that, the board wanted looked at, it would be nice to be able to have, ideally have the water department look at that.
I mean, I know we have one tower in town already,
Yeah,
the church steeple. And
yeah.
again, 20 years ago, that was generating 1,000 a month in revenue, so I don't know what it is today.
Mhm. And that's a lower elevation, I think it's.
Well, I know, yeah, it's a great idea, though, I'm saying.
Yeah, so I think whether it's future or something, but
So should we put it on the long term?
I think that'd be good. Yeah, because I don't think realistically it's something that, where they don't have experience with that, it's something that would probably require, some pretty heavy involvement from my office, so where it's not something we've talked about, I think long term would be
We
good.
had hired a contractor at the time who specialized in that.
Was that David Maxon?
I just wrote the name, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I've worked with David.
Yeah, he was great.
Yeah, he's kind of I won't say he's the only game in town, but he's definitely like the preeminent.
He was the best at the time, yeah. So-
We spent about a year and a half together in Westford. Nature.
So that would be an infrastructure, right?
I would look at it that way,
Yeah.
yeah, or public service, because it's kind of, like you're doing two things here, yeah, so, yeah.
Okay, are you both all right with that?
Yeah, but if we're gonna list these and decide if they're on our, should we jump back to the Mill Pond?
Yeah, I think that would be good.
Sure, yeah, I kind of glossed over that, but is that something that,
I don't think so, I thought our decisions.
Yeah, I think, we didn't vote, but I think last time we felt like once you start that, you're all in, and that was probably not something we wanted to take on.
I would like to be clear that I don't run on the plan.
Okay, Ross, what are your thoughts on that? Mhm.
next one, this is a little obscure, but it is something that's come up and it's important. It's more of a staff level thing, but that's something that really Caitlin and Jenny and I would need to put together and bring to you, but it's something that we've talked about a couple of times at a staff level. It is something that we don't have that I think would be important to have, which is a retiree policy. Many towns have policies that in order to be eligible for town retirement, you have to have had a certain number of years of service. We do not have a policy like that, which means someone could come to work for us, retire after a year, and be on the town's retirement. So many towns do have policies. Caitlin has templates.
Oh, she does.
Yeah, yeah. So it's just a matter of, again, having the bandwidth to focus on it and bring something forward that's thoughtful. Obviously, we could cut and paste and get some other town's policy, but that's not how we do things around here. So it wouldn't take much time, but it would take a few hours, which, as you know, is more than we have. And so I think it ought to be, on the list, because, and I would say it should be, this fiscal year.
So near term, maybe,
I'd say maybe this fiscal year, just because
that would be the second half of the fiscal year.
oh, yeah, near term, yeah.
I mean, we have fewer projects on that.
Yeah, that's fun, yeah, near term.
You both bring it that,
It's probably.
And then similar to that, this is something I've mentioned before, I think Wendy, you and I have talked about it a couple of times, but a formal contract signing policy is something that would be recommended. Right now, our chief procurement officer is authorized to sign contracts, but it's not always as simple as that. So I think that would be a good near-term policy as well, if the board agrees. What that is a formal policy that would be adopted by the board regarding who's empowered to sign contracts that are binding on the town.
it seems like immediate term, right?
It could, yeah, it could
I mean,
be.
it seems pretty important.
It is very important. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Agreed?
The next one, and this is one Rebecca pointed out, because I told her, like, rack your brain, what's come up that's like still open, and she mentioned this, and she's right. And you'll remember you talked about it sometime in the last year, that the rates that we charge for the electric vehicle charging stations. I gather that, that's not my area of expertise, but I gather they are pretty low. So that is something that ought to be periodically reviewed. That might be something that you refer to the Energy Committee for a recommendation, but we don't want to lose track of it, because as long as we leave them unchanged, they'll stay how they are. So it is something I think, as a matter of practice, we ought to relook at it at least every other year, that just to make sure that we're, you know, optimizing the benefit of those, stations.
So it's been 2 years since we looked at it, right? I remember.
Yeah,
Well, have you been on the board, Chris? Let me look at that.
Well, we used to get the monthly reports on it, but that was about it.
Okay, so we did, I remember doing an evaluation of it.
so I mean, I think this is as simple as just asking that committee to
Yeah.
provide a recommendation, and then they come to a future meeting, and the board could vote that.
Okay, so immediate or future?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would think they could turn around a recommendation in a span, you know, pretty quickly if they were asked. And then, finally, this came up the other night at the planning board. It's come up at the last couple of planning board meetings, this idea of a complicated, like a master plan for Cammett Park. As we know, there were reasons that was not brought forward in 2022. If that is something, even if it's initiated by a different elected body, the Park and Rec Commission. If that is something that, you know, I guess I wanted to just put it out there to get some sense of where that fits in this board's sense of priorities, because, you know, I think it's a fine idea, but obviously it would take time and resources, so.
So that's not a Park and Rec project, right?
Well, I think if there was an initiative, you know, there'd be, to do it properly, you're talking public engagement, public process, and, you know, they don't have a staff person, you know, their staff support is basically me, to some extent Caitlin and Brian, but not for a public process like that, you know,
Yeah,
it's, I think there would be a lot of public interest in that, and so you'd be dealing with, you know, a number of meetings and all the associated impacts of that.
so, I mean, on the long-term list, we have the Pipe State and Dunn master plan. I mean, I don't know that we want to take on all of those, my same, I mean, it's similar, right? Looking at,
I think Pipe State and Dunn is towards the magnitude more complicated because of the CR and because of Greenbelt's property interest there. And the management plan, but. Yeah, I think it's similar in
so why don't we add it to the long-term list, but just as a placeholder. I don't see us investing resources in that.
well, and long term, I mean, that could even, you know, let's say they really want to get on that and propose funding in spring. That still wouldn't start before FY 27, because the soonest funding would be approved for that would be a spring town meeting. So I think long term is appropriate, whether it's FY 27 or whether it's later. That's gonna have a lot to do with what else is going on and what the bandwidth is.
Okay. So what are you calling it? A comprehensive plan?
I wrote, yes,
Okay,
that's not what I wrote, but I can't say.
all right. I just didn't know if there was a different aspect, but. All right. Sarah, do you have anything to add?
Enough on there already. I
Well,
don't really think of a priority.
yeah.
Or what's there in my mind.
The only thing I had was, I mean, we're discussing later tonight that trail management framework, that was no impact on staff to write it. But to implement it, there will be, you know, a nominal impact on DPW conservation agents, so I just feel like that should be on here. What do you think, Angus?
I totally agree.
Right, I would put that as immediate because we want to roll it out the right way. Right, I mean, it's basically just setting up a system to get insurance from compactors.
I already know it's going forward, so everyone on this, if you're, that's fine, yeah, but.
Yeah, it's more the implementation than the
Yep.
drafting. All right, so I think, I mean, if other things come up, let's just make it a formal discussion as an action item and.
Yep.
All right. Um, this is my point here. How about we go to G, review and request approval for the updated special event application?
So Amanda wasn't feeling well, so she went home sick, that's why Max is here in her stead. I'll tell you, I had a question as to whether it makes sense to do this before a bylaw, but I know you and she talked about that, so I think you had a thought that it did make sense.
I just said that sounded fine. I mean, I think it would be great to replace the current application just from strictly administrative point of view. Do you have any comments, Chris?
What?
Okay.
I think the lines are getting blurred on this because it talks about public and private, and there's a significant difference between the two.
Mhm.
For the town to be trying to regulate how many people you can have on your property and what kind of events. As long as it's reasonable here, it's not appropriate. And there aren't even threshold, it gives you an example of the backyard running with 100 guests, blah, blah, blah. Well, somebody still cut it down to 99 guests, and they don't need a permit. I think you have to define things, they have to, particularly on the private properties.
So I think that is intended, like if there's parking on the street, right? Impacts to the public.
Correct.
Or noise, I guess, we do the other one.
If they impact the broad public, so somebody could claim noise, how much traffic is too much traffic turning in and out? And again, it's a personal experience, we had 125 people,
Right.
there was no impact, I mean. It's 50 cars and they come in over the course of a half an hour, it's not a big deal, but with this policy, I would have to get all kinds of permits.
So Max, is this something new? Is the private events not in the fire, or do you know?
That's a good question. I believe this is new just in terms of addressing, and this came up because someone had come to ask us about, oh, we're having a wedding. People are gonna probably maybe need to park on the street, so I need to get a special event permit. And we realized it's sort of a gray area, right? That, you know, if somebody parks 40 cars on the street, it's impeding traffic, you know, kind of where does this line fall? And is it up to somebody who is, you know, inconvenienced by it to call public safety? Should, you know, people just try to let us know or let public safety know before they run an event? I don't know. Because, you know, like, I can see where you're coming from, but at the same time, if we can head off people having issues or getting into arguments if parking space is taken up or whatever, we should try.
There's really not, again, where's the threshold would be my question. You know, if you have trucks, vendors, blah, 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 or serve large crowds, it's pretty arbitrary.
So we just need more detail.
I think, you know, definition of what your criteria are to control an event on private property. Yeah, I think you're really crossing a big line there. I mean, if somebody has a graduation party with 30 people, they have to come in and file for a special permit event and go through all this focus. I understand when it's on town property, that's a whole different thing.
But what if it's parking on town streets?
That's different, parking on the streets. If you can encompass it all on your property. You know, we were able to park, we striped lines, we brought in a portable bathroom facility, we did that on our own. You shouldn't have to go through a permitting process, I don't think, I think it's too cumbersome. You know, like high school graduation, you have 30 people. We gotta make, you know, 20 families a year come in and get permits for that. Somebody has a wedding or a celebration. And again, once you define in the beginning, you can control it on private property, then all the other regulations allegedly would be requirements, because then it lists what you have to do, and it doesn't say if it's public or private. So then you're sort of dragging on all those regulations, you know, lease details and inspections by Board of Health and all that stuff. I think the noise, obviously, at certain times is applicable, but there's no definition of how loud and all amplified sound, what the noise level. Is the 9 o'clock time appropriate for cutoff? I don't know.
Yeah, that's something I wanted to check with you guys.
I think it needs a lot of work. I think it's really wide open.
Just in terms of private, or are there other things?
Well,
like
if something's public, says all amplified sound shall cease. I mean, is there a certain decibel level they can go to before that? Irritate the neighbors? I think there's a lot missing in the whole thing.
So, do you have specific notes that you can give from the end of feedback or?
Should not be too nasty. Clean it up and.
I mean, the one thing that I saw is the temporary signage, it needs to say. If road races have to post a sign 3 days in advance, you know. So I don't know if that comes under temporary signs or whether that just needs to be its own category.
Do you want a separate category for? I think temporary signage would this be signage specifically for a road race or a?
Yeah, typically those are the things that impact residents' use of their street and their driveway, and so we definitely want that to be on there. I'm just
I think we'd almost have two, if you're gonna approach it on private property, I think it's very
have a separate.
dicey, but I think you ought to address it first and foremost
Yeah.
on public. Property and facilities, because that's what we started down with,
Right,
and all of a sudden, here's one that sort of really got me, and this was the first, insurance and liability. I don't know, this was even on the private property, we talked about it. No, that's not one, but a notification, large event on private property, you have to send notice. By mail to all the abutters. I mean, I just did that for my ADUs. $280.
I know it's not cheap.
No, so to say I'm gonna have a party and have to send legal notifications, everybody's. I don't think it'll be well received, I wouldn't appreciate it. I'd rather see it get focused on public and iron out the details there, and then if you want to expand it to private. Maybe think about that.
Yeah, I think, I share a lot of the concerns that Chris said. Just going through the notes that I had, so on the first page, where it gives that example of backyard wedding with 100 guests, valet parking, catering, and shuttle buses affecting local traffic patterns would trigger a review. And I said, well, my note was, which of those things is what triggers the review, you know? Because it's good to have examples, but I wasn't clear what was triggering the review here, if it was all of it or if there's one particular. Taking a step back, I think that like the form is really nice. I think she did it. I think it's certainly a step in the right direction. Obviously, the substance and some of the limitations and whatnot with some executive level input, if you will. But it does appear to me to be a step in the right direction. When I was looking at event rules and conditions, I wondered if that would be it would be better broken down into subheadings of public versus private. There might be some duplicity there with things that apply to both, but it seemed to me like for people trying to figure out whether or not they need a permit, it would be more clear to say, these are the scenarios of what you need on public property and private property. Other notes, temporary tents larger than 400 square feet, that seems really small, that's 20 by 20. A building permit for a 20 by 20.
It's a tent, it's not a building,
There's the rules.
That seems pretty tight.
but nobody's ever done, I'm pretty sure nobody's ever come in and asked for a building permit for a tent for one day event, has they?
I don't know if they
For
were,
large tents, there is I don't know what the threshold is, but there is a threshold where the building inspector, like for the, I mean, this is an extreme example, but the field day that was done for the bicentennial back in 2019, that big tent, that did need the building inspector.
Again, private versus public, that's all.
Right, but even on, I believe even, but that's a different, Sam knows that, but there is a threshold above which the tents have to actually have the
Well, the
building.
curious thing is, was it 400 square feet or 200?
400, yeah.
It just seems.
So that does seem small.
That's about the size of this, it's room and square, but it's plus or minus the size of this room.
I don't think anybody's probably ever come in, a private individual saying, I'm having a wedding on my property and I have a, 20 by 30 tent, I'd like a
You're
permit.
probably true.
That's insane.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure how they would know that, by the way. To pop up a tent in your own.
Well, the vendor would, the client would, the home would.
Right, well, I had a vendor, they didn't ask about it. It just,
For a butter notification in large events, but large isn't really defined. So, but. Yeah, so that's my feedback, but I think the form, which so much of this is getting the form such that. The forms can be filled out, the application can be filled out properly. I think that the sign off sheet with all the departments is very well presented.
Yes.
So, yeah, that's my feedback.
Okay. Max, you all set to convey that feedback?
yeah,
I can send her.
Yeah, I've been thinking these ones as well, so.
I can give you mine, they aren't that.
Make sure you leave with a step in the right direction. So make sure you leave with how much better the application itself looks.
Well, I think there's confusion because of the public-private, not a problem, with the context of the basic
Yeah.
on public products.
All right. Anything else on that?
So I assume that'll come back when ready and not,
Yeah.
yeah, so probably a couple of meetings out, I would think.
So there are, if you have questions, Chris, there's the vote in private, right?
So now we can go over.
All right. It being 6:10. Even though. It's here, we kind of passed over yours, because you were told 6:15.
Oh, am I all set or not?
No, we want to hear from you. All right, we'll go back to item B, review of application to serve on the Whittier Tech School Building Committee. So.
Hi.
Hi. Tell us what what you're on the school committee.
Chris had called me up. Certainly willing, to be a member of the, building committee, given my already commitment to, Whittier. I know it's gonna be, a long process. Hopefully we have a new regional school of some kind, in about 8 years. And, so that's the horizon I'm looking at. Knock on a lot of wood. I don't really, I mean, I know part of this is that we need to rework the regional agreement. I know that's gonna be a sticky wicket. I have not a lot of thoughts on it. Look forward to hearing input from the board, as to the best way to go. I mean, I definitely see this as a, not a partnership, but a process that I need a lot of, input and guidance and stuff like that. And I hope that, members of the board will offer that.
We could set up like depending on what the meeting frequency is, but either a monthly update or.
Yeah, I don't know yet. I mean, as you folks know, you signed the letter. It's been sent to the Mass Building, Committee there. Where I guess now the process is that we are actually submitting, not only some names, but also just some general criteria of what people's qualifications are. And it's unclear to me whether, I mean, I think are you guys appointing me or are you recommending me? Because it's unclear as to who's
Same.
doing the appointing.
Same,
Let me ask the question,
yeah,
every town, however we choose.
Yeah.
Right. We send it on, and the Whittier School Committee has to approve it. Now I asked the superintendent, will they? And she said, oh, I assume you will.
Well, yeah, and I kind of had the approval also, but the building authority has certain qualifications they want to make sure are represented within the committee.
Right.
So I don't know what happens if all of a sudden the pool that they're looking for, because yes, I don't feel bad saying I'm second to Brad Dorr in terms of architectural knowledge.
We're trying to get architectural knowledge at first, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't mind, we can embellish my public policy all you want, but, if the Mass Building Authority says, hey, you don't have the qualifications here, I mean, I don't know what happens there.
well,
but-
it's not just architects, there's a whole list.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Specialties, yeah.
Exactly. So I mean, I don't know whether they kick it back to the school committee and say, you guys need to,
Find an
There are certain administrative ones they have to fill, like they have the business manager and things like that.
right.
But one of the criteria is the Whittier School Committee members, so.
Yeah, well, I'm
Definitely
definitely,
that guy. We just didn't wanna have put out a public outreach and have somebody who had no qualifications, no building, no school, educational.
right.
We wanted to make sure there was something going forward in that seat from our town.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely feel, from a public policy point of view, I'll fit a niche. And, certainly from an accountability point of view, I'll work with you on that. Because that's what accountability is about. It ain't me attending these meetings. It's, reporting back and everything. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know what it'll entail. I don't know how often, whether it's gonna come in, waves of a few meetings and then death. But it does strike me actually as I was driving over, it's like, 8-year process. Kind of funny how all of a sudden the first building thing just showed up on our doorstep.
Well, there was, I mean, that was one of the big critiques, is there was, I think, what, 3 or 4 years of process before it was communicated to the
Right.
communities. And that's where I think going forward, but there were people who had been working on it for many years before it was ever
Right.
brought to the community's awareness, which was obviously a significant failure in the prior process.
And no matter, I'm not sure what we're gonna do moving forward, but I'll tell you, I think the best selling tool for the Pentucket school, to get that done was our stabilization fund. And for what, 4 years, 5 years, we had to vote to put in money into that stabilization fund. And so by the time it came to, doing the real vote, it was kind of a done deal. It was in everybody's mind frame, and it really, I mean, that's what angered me the most, that there was no selling process on that school. And that's gonna be absolutely essential for this to move forward.
We still have funds left in that account too.
Yeah, but we're gonna put more in, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did we put money into it?
We did, yeah, because even though we've been drawing it down for the middle high school to offset the debt service, now that we, with the completion of the conditions assessment at Page, and knowing that whether it's, renovation or whatever other scenario, there are gonna be significant future costs to the taxpayer per Page. The board has set a direction to start recapitalizing that, as well as Whittier, because the school stabilization fund, you can draw for
Anyone, I didn't know
any
that.
of those eligible. So even though kind of the branding of the one that was done starting around 2016 or 2015, it was always, communicated as, well, this is for the middle high school. The fact is, once it's in a school stabilization, it can be used for any school capital project. So that was,
I mean, to me, the bottom line is we have to talk about it at town meeting and make people aware, and reports, and vote on a few transfers of stabilization to establish that this is gonna happen.
Yeah, one thing that Kevin mentioned, and it's a concern to me, it's about the regional agreement has to be rewritten. I missed the last meeting, I don't know if they discussed that, but if the regional agreement doesn't get rewritten, this is dead in the water,
correct, yes.
and that's gonna be a very, very difficult process.
Extremely difficult.
Yeah. So I brought it
You have to
up.
have the end vision in place before you can rewrite the agreement to accommodate it. But we don't know what that's gonna be, and then there's outliers who are not still enthusiastic about this, that they've accommodated signing the letter to see what the next step is, so.
Yeah, there was pretty extensive discussion at the meeting last week, and one of the things that it's, I think the school building project is a Herculean project. The regional agreement's a Herculean project. They're both gonna be proceeding in parallel, with the necessity that they both hit the finish line at the same time.
Well, doesn't the regional agreement have to come first?
Well, it's gotta, I'm gonna go a little further with that, so when I, yeah, I mean, so finish line is a different thing, but so that wasn't the right term to use, but one thing that was said at the last meeting, at the meeting last Wednesday, this was, the big regional thing and they had brought in a couple of people from the Mass Association of Regional School Districts, MARS, who were very familiar with the MSBA process, specifically as relates to regional schools, which is different than, a community school. And the two people who participated, the kind of expert consultants, they gave some advice on process and things. And one thing they said was that DESE is going to have, you can go through your own whole process, but DESE is going to have its own very particular expectations and requirements for the regional agreement, which we got a good glimpse of that back in January when we got the PRSD markups. It's going to be similar to that. And the date of effect of a modified regional agreement, this is where it gets kind of mind-bendingly complicated, is the date that it is signed by the DESE commissioner. It is not the date that is voted by the communities. So I made the point at the meeting that, let's say the regional agreement affects either the allocation of operating budget and or the allocation of capital budget. The Whittier School Committee and administration is going to need to know that at least 8 or 9 months prior to the start of the fiscal year, because that's going to affect their budgeting for the subsequent fiscal year. And so it's almost like a qualified agreement to change it because, if a community is being asked to agree to, for instance, a change in the funding formula, before they know what those capital costs are gonna be, that's not gonna work politically. And obviously with the necessity for a unanimous vote for an amendment of the regional agreement, it's just, it's hard to get your head around how difficult this is gonna be. So I asked the question of given that the date of effect is the date the deputy commissioner signs it, could a regional agreement provide that the date of effect is some future date? So that, let's say, for instance, cities and towns are voting it during a certain cycle, but with a date of effect of, say, 12 or 15 months in the future for the start of the subsequent fiscal year, like 15 months away, because you would kind of need to do that in order for any changes in allocation of budget or capital budget to be known well enough ahead. So this is enormously complex. So Kevin's gonna be, assuming you appoint him, he's gonna be solving all of this.
Yeah, I have a deep headache right now on that.
Appoint him quick.
Yeah, right.
That's the building committee, or they were gonna establish a separate committee they were talking about to rewrite the agreement?
Well, I was wondering, is that gonna be the town manager, city mayor committee that you're part of, or is that?
That was never a committee. That was in the newspaper, it was a committee.
Yeah,
That was
yeah.
never a committee. That was.
We don't know how
a
we,
formal collection of mayors and managers. There was never a charge.
so there is no formal process outlined of how rewriting the regional agreement will happen.
Not yet.
So there you go, there's a problem before we solve it.
Yeah, right. Hey, I don't know, like you said, it sounds like a new committee to me, I'm not on that.
We did have that discussion.
Yeah.
No, that's well outside the purview of the building committee.
Well,
Yeah.
but
Yes.
to your point.
No, he'll have to solve that as a school committee.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, well, to your point, there are three things that I know of, one of which has already been accomplished with the letter that you guys signed in June or whatever. There are 3 points where all 14 towns or whatever it is, cities and towns, 11, I don't know what it is, have got to come into complete agreement, period.
Yeah. Yep, the regional agreement's gotta be approved by all 11 cities and towns.
Right.
Which is, one of the major flaws of the regional.
Well, we got 10 out of 11 to agree on something before voting it down.
They're in this line of thought, right?
But that last one.
Well, we want the opposite of that, obviously. No, there's a lot of unknowns and
All right.
Motion again, nominate Kevin Gold to be West Newbury's representative to the Whittier School Building Committee.
Second.
Any further discussion?
What is the term?
I was gonna say,
Well, that's
the
it.
term, or how we should phrase it is to serve until such time as the work of the Whittier School Building Committee is completed and the committee is dissolved.
That's exactly what I said. You weren't listening.
All right.
so the term is, it's a life term.
A life sentence.
You're like,
I wanna thank him for doing it too, because a lot of people would sit there and go, I'm not, 8 years and he's probably not far off.
No,
He was enthusiastic when I called him up.
well.
all right, Kevin, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. So next step is we'll communicate that to the superintendent. They will then, the school committee is gonna be meeting in September to make the official appointments, because this is the town of West Newbury's nomination. I do expect from what the superintendent has said, you will be appointed by the school committee, but it's their appointment to make, so. Only at that point would you be sworn in once you're officially appointed,
I've been behaving myself.
to my knowledge.
Sure not.
All right, John?
Yes.
All right, we'll move on to item D. Application for special event permit, John Mortimer of Millennium Run.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Very much. Back again, for this 15th annual Newbury Port Half Marathon. And, Town of West Newbury is a great host in a portion of the course. Large majority of it runs in Newburyport, and, I think there's been a course map circulated to the committee, and, it's a little bit different this year because of some construction along, the bridge across Middle Street connecting them. So we're avoiding that for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
And perhaps found that it might actually be better and less impactful to do it this way in the future as well. So would be open to continue that. But in reality, where it used to go, basically 1.5 miles of the course goes through West Newbury with Middle Garden coming back on Rogers, back to Turkey Hill. It now is now back on Rogers. So it impacts 2 less streets in town, which is good, and then requires less officers as well. At the same time, so I think it's a net positive, and I think that consumers, our runners, might like it because it spends more time along the way to out and back.
It's gonna require closure of Rogers Street.
It would no more than it already is. Rogers is a pretty narrow street as it is. Certainly the residents, I think, forgive me how many residents there are, I think there's maybe 10, each one is communicated to. We have grab bags, care packages, come out, you're invited to your driveway to come and cheer. Let them come out, but of course, if they need to get in or out, we grant access at all times, so.
And so how do you do that? I think there were some concerns last year. A resident was unhappy that she was blocked in her driveway.
Sure, absolutely. So from that perspective, there's care packages with each one. There's a phone number if they need to get in or out during the event.
Okay.
Certainly, if there's an emergency, yes, you're gonna get out. But if you can plan ahead, that's part of it. There's and I have a time window of when there's a specific time window that's provided in the direct communication. If you have to get out during that time, let us know. We'll make sure we do that.
Okay.
So there's police officer at the end, and we also have staff up there. Being a turnaround, a U-turn on Rogers Street, and an aid station nearby, we are in direct communication with that. We have timing locations, so we can facilitate anything that needs to happen in that capacity. But catching someone by surprise is far worse than telling them and arranging it ahead of time, so.
Yeah. So, I think you also had a note about signage.
Yes.
It says pre-race signage, so 3 days
Yeah.
before with the times of the race.
Yep, earlier in the week, on Monday of that week, I personally come down between Newburyport as well as West Newbury. We put signs at every intersection along the course to say, expect road closures and delays. And a phone number to call if you have any questions,
Okay.
part of the communication strategy on that.
Any questions? Any comment? Application?
Motion to approve the Newburyport Half Marathon special permit.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Right, you're all set?
Thank you very much, appreciate it, thanks. If you want to run, let me know.
Okay.
Thanks.
Nope.
I want the care package.
All right. Now we are on to, H, Max, am I right?
Yep, that's right.
Vote to close the warrant for the fall special town meeting. So Angus, do you want to talk a little bit about the schedule and?
Yes, so the expectation would be that if the board sees fit, that it would vote to close the warrant tonight. Determine initial list of warrant articles. As you know, things can always come off later, but once you vote to close the warrant, you cannot add articles without reopening the warrant. It'll just be a notice public meeting. We included here sub bullet of review of schedule, referral of articles to finance committee and others as appropriate. I didn't know when we posted this agenda whether there might be anything needing to go to any other committees besides FinCom. So my request to the board for those articles that have a financial component is if, assuming you include them on the list, if they're complete and they're ready, they can be referred out, at your meeting tonight. But where there are some articles that still have some moving parts, I would suggest if you wait till your next meeting to actually refer those to FinCom. So, you know, FinCom would be aware they're on the list, but prior to, you know, getting it before them, you know, I'd like to obviously see all the details worked out, so. And then I do know FinCom has penciled in a meeting next Thursday, so if there is anything referred to them tonight, they could start their review next week. I'm out of town next week, as is Jenny, so I think anything that we're involved with, we would look to them to review at a subsequent meeting, so we could be there for that. But if there's anything that's, you know, ready for their review that you refer out tonight, they do have a meeting penciled in a week from tonight.
So are we planning to have joint meetings again, or? What are your thoughts? Only because if we're referring stuff, then that we're committing ourselves to meeting with them next week as well. Chris Ross, what do you think?
I don't know, they started out good and then they seem to get kind of messy. I also don't know. I think once one of the boards was voting it, one can be, the other just sort of follow, just, I'm not sure there was enough open discussion at a certain point.
Is that a function of the both boards being in the same room,
I'm
or?
not sure what it was, again, we did it for a number of times, number of cycles.
Yeah,
Just-
the first two I think were really good.
Yeah, and then it just got kind of mushy, I don't know how to describe it,
Yeah, I mean, I like it because staff only have to go to one meeting instead.
I appreciate that, but I'm not
Yeah.
sure, yeah.
Dennis, do you have any thoughts?
Well, we talked about it before, that we would continue meeting together, but
Yeah.
have the option of separate meetings if we felt like we wanted to do a deeper dive.
Yeah. I mean, perhaps we can have the discussion with the staff person or whoever's the sponsor together. You could always vote at a later meeting, you know, we would not require them to come if you feel like you needed more time, same with us. All right, it has bearing on how we go from here, so,
I don't mind going ahead with it again, I think we just have to all be aware.
well, now that we have Dennis as chair, maybe everything will be swimming.
Jim Sperling is still a parliamentarian, right?
Yeah, that's right. Okay. All right, so we'll go to sub-bullet I, review of requests. So Angus sent out this table. I'm a little, I don't feel prepared to discuss whether or not to include items because I haven't had a chance to go through this packet yet. I don't, have you guys had a chance
That
to?
almost just dropped me here tonight.
No, that was just what came in, since I sent this out last night.
Oh, I didn't jump on it last night, I was busy going through this packet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, well, let's at least just go through them and you can give us a snapshot. and-
Sure.
I could always reschedule the meeting, then we set it up a couple of weeks ago, just thinking that the article would be done, the articles would be done. So I could wait another week or so.
All right, so this order in the memo that was the cover memo for the packet sent around is in the same order that it's in the kind of table with the more of the scorecard type format. So first article is always the board commission committee reports, that doesn't need any action. But I put that in just because that is always article one. The order is obviously subject to change the board, but I kind of follow the logical flow that we typically do, start with financial articles and so forth. Obviously, you might want to do it different with MBTA, whatever, but I kind of laid it out the way that a typical warrant would look. So budget amendments, I'm working with Jenny on that, and I did put together the article request with the 4 lines that we do expect to propose revisions to. I think 2 of those would be reductions, and there's a net pretty significant reduction. Basically, the increase we see 2 proposed increases. One would be technology expenses. As I briefed you guys on back in July, we were hit with kind of a unanticipated $5,000 charge for the website conversion. We could have done it for free, but the premium website is markedly better, so I think it's worth $5,000. That was not something I carried in the technology budget, so that's a proposed increase. The town clerk, obviously, we had a staffing change in salary, that could be paid out of the article.
Mhm.
But the problem with, and it's up to you how you want to handle it, but The problem with paying it out of the unbudgeted personnel costs is that then when we get to the FY 27 budget, it's gonna appear to be a big jump. So I think it's better to just, Jenny and I feel it would be better to simply adjust that budget line to accurately reflect this year's salary, wages in the clerk's office. The third, Essex Tech, as you know, we always budget based on a projected number of students. We don't get confirmation from Essex Tech until October 1st of what the actual enrollment is. We were in touch with the business office this week and they have 3 people enrolled, so in the off chance that some 4th person materializes between now and October 1st, we would simply modify this article. But in my view, 23,000 is a significant enough reduction. That's about a penny and a half on the tax rate. So I think if there's 3 students, my recommendation would be don't budget for 4, let's reduce that. And then on the health insurance, we've revised those calculations and we see a pretty significant savings there. Of orders of magnitude 65,000. The reason I marked this draft is we are still going through this, with a fine tooth comb, but, and then insurance and bonds, this 5,000, this kind of a placeholder number. I think it could actually be more than that. This is to reflect, as I think I told you guys previously, we, really thanks to a lot of work Rebecca does on a year-round basis, we are now taking full advantage of the credits that we get from Maya, and therefore, even though our gross costs for insurance are what we carry in the budget, our net costs are something less, because we're taking advantage of credits of documenting employee participation in safety trainings and these kinds of things. So bottom line, I think it's going to be about 75K that we'd be reducing, proposing to reduce from the operating budget, which amounts to about 5 cents on the tax rate. So it's not trivial. Church and Prospect, I spoke about that briefly earlier, but it's a recently developing situation. At the September 9th meeting, the Board of Water Commissioners will receive an updated proposed change order from Tate and Howard, reflecting the total final project costs for that. If the Board of Water Commissioners approves the change order, they would then need to request select board approval to advance the funds to pay amounts above the contract, in anticipation that they would then secure a special town meeting appropriation to reimburse the funds that were advanced. Mark had put in an estimate of about 170. I think that's probably the ballpark. Transfer free cash to reduce the tax rate. As you know, we talk about this every year, and Jenny and I do have a working number. I intentionally have not put it out there because with everything I've been juggling, I haven't had time to really dig in on that. And I don't want to put a number out until until we've both gone through that. So but it would be proposed to be sized to account for the settlement that was ordered by the court earlier this year. So it will be a 6-figure amount.
And is the intent to keep it to 2.5%? And is that your?
Well, with the operating budget, we were already at 2.2%.
Yeah.
That's the thing. This year's operating budget wasn't that. I don't want to trivialize any increase because obviously it's coming out of taxpayer dollars or pockets, but this year's operating budget came in below the board's target. So you may arrive at a number that is really solely to do with offsetting the settlement amount that was paid in connection with the Ash Street matter.
Okay.
So that's going to be, I think our job is to lay out for you what the rationale is, and then your job is to pick a number that makes sense to you and refer to income. Page School MSBA consulting services, I did receive from, so I don't know if you'd looked at it yet, but we had invited a proposal from DNAP that's appended to the article forms, and that is really focused on ensuring that we have the support we need and that we can provide the support we need or want to provide to Kentucky in the preparation of a statement of interest to MSBA. So DNAP has given us a proposal of $15,000. That would be basically on an hourly as needed basis with a not to exceed amount. So it would be them, you know, zooming into meetings or coming into meetings or conversations as needed, in the, you know, 7 or 8 months leading up to the, well, of course, this wouldn't be approved till November, so we'd really be talking about like 4 to 5 months, leading up to the filing of a statement of interest. We had also asked for a supplemental scope item to, basically do with translating the conditions assessment projects to our capital program, because as you know, the conditions assessment sets out a lot of so-called Band-Aid projects. We need to make sure those are accurately reflected in our capital planning and that they are, that we reconcile that with projects we've already got in our capital program. So we've been working on that at a staff level, but because that report is highly technical, we feel would benefit from that. So I did actually get a supplemental proposal from Deanna today. I included the materials I sent out, kind of email thread, just to give you kind of a sense of exactly where we are, but it was just this afternoon, we got a proposal. I'll waste time trying to find it now, but that'll be in the, you know, that'll be updated, you know, when I recirculate this, but that's a separate scope item, $7,500, again, hourly not to exceed, for them to basically help make sure that we are accurately translating their architect speak to capital program plan.
Are you sharing this screen?
I'm actually not now, but I can, yeah. Next one, the library expansion renovation feasibility study that came in from the library board, so I don't know if you wanna invite them to speak to that.
Yeah, I mean, I see most of the board is here. We're not, this is not your opportunity like to argue for it, but if you want to just give a, you know, 30-second overview, that's fine.
No, I'll hold out for 2 minutes, maybe.
30 seconds is all you have, Fred.
I could
This
never
is-
do it 30 seconds.
We're not deciding what articles to include tonight. This is just because they've all only been received today, so we don't.
Well, when I understood that you were closing the warrant article, I thought that you were deciding what would be in and out.
No, we're closing the warrant, so no more can come in.
Well, then my 30 seconds will be to, we have 7 members out of the 9 here tonight to show you how interested and invested the board is in having a study done, whether or not we call it an architectural design study or a feasibility study or a master plan. The idea is to see what the current footprint of the library can be in terms of meeting the future needs of the library constituency, which is who are our residents. So that's the impetus for behind this. I will say that we have filed not knowing what your process is, and so I apologize to the board members that came tonight for having to sit here for so long, not understanding. It was my fault for misleading you. We have filed 2 requests, warrant articles. One was for the 30,000, which would be the town share of a study. The library board has indicated that we're happy to pay for part of it, you know, 50-50 split and put a limit on the town expenditure. The second article was if that first article for the 30K was not accepted by the board and would not be on the fall agenda, we filed a warrant article request for a non-binding resolution so we can have the town aware of what's going on and we can see if there is support by members of the town to encourage the library board to have that study done. So that would be withdrawn if the first warrant article request for 30K makes it on the fall meeting agenda. That was sort of a backup just in case. So again, I apologize to the board members for not understanding that this was not a discussion meeting. We would just request that you let us know when that kind of meeting would occur so we can talk to the board in detail about what we have in mind, the progress, why we're doing it, and why we feel so strongly.
Okay.
So, thank you, again. Sorry.
You actually had 8, Monique is on the Zoom.
Thought we had 8.
Yeah.
I know that Monique is there.
Well, I thought you said you had
No,
7
but
here.
Karina's not on the board.
I thought you said 7, I'm just going off your.
4, 5, well, whatever.
Yeah.
We have a quorum.
All right,
So just, well, since we're gonna touch on, do you wanna just outline kind of the process of when you put it on the warrant, then it's referred, and it's really the finance committee process to review things in terms of recommendation? Do you want to just?
why don't you go ahead and do that?
Yeah, so once the board, decides something's gonna be on the warrant, then it would refer to the finance committee, and that's when both the FinCom and the select board would vote its recommendation on whether to, support it or not. Typically, the select board, will put things on the warrant that it intends to support. That's not absolute. There have been times in the past, the select board just put an article on the warrant, and not recommended it, to bring it to the voters. So it's really entirely the purview of the select board of what's on the warrant. And in terms of the timing, yeah, of course, we always, work with the article sponsor and the chair of FinCom to make sure that's scheduled at a time that can be for everybody.
Because I just had a question, just for my own clarification. So we could just expect to see one or the other on the fall meeting warrant, right?
That's up to you, I mean, you put them both in, so.
Yeah, but you folks are the ones that make the decision, right?
Right, so we haven't decided yet, so.
There would be one or the other, I would expect.
Well, maybe to clarify the question, since we've submitted both, if you close the warrant article agenda tonight, that means that both at least would receive some future consideration by you and by the FinCom.
Not necessarily. We're closing the warrant, we have all the articles that were submitted, the select board has to vote to put them on the warrant, and then it gets referred to the FinCom.
So you're saying that neither one could appear on it?
I mean, it's possible, I mean, the
That's
snagging
what-
this year is that typically the warrant closes 3 days before the select board meeting, so we have a chance to review everything, but for a number of reasons, it closed today, so we just got all the materials today, and we're working, so we haven't had time to review it, so probably at our next meeting, we'll decide what's on the warrant.
Okay, thank you. And when's your next meeting?
On September 4th.
Oh.
So. But I will let Fred know for sure.
Okay.
We're gonna be
And
discussing.
that would be when we could have the discussion about whether or not you would support putting it on the warrant article agenda. Or that's,
Yeah, so there's
that
two
ship would
steps.
have sailed
No.
before.
The first step is putting it on the warrant. That's a decision by the select board. If it's on the warrant, then it gets evaluated
Right.
for approval by the FinCom.
Right.
Select board, we go yes or no, and that goes in the booklet.
And that first step is tonight or September 4th?
September 4th.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, that's what I was.
I'll confirm with you, but tentatively, that's what we're thinking.
Okay, I just with Chris out that night, I know, the referral would be subsequent, but,
So
okay.
it could be September 18th.
Well, no, I don't think it would be that. No, what I was getting at is that there may well be a need for a special meeting next week with the MBTA. I don't know that you wanna, bulk that up with other things, but just.
I will let you know for sure when we're gonna discuss it. And you can let the members of the trustees know.
Great, thank you very much, we
Yeah,
appreciate it.
Where are we? Invasive species management, I think you touched on that already.
I touched on that, and I did include in the packet the, scope that we received from, the vendor. You'll notice I redacted the amounts because I'm not prepared to propose those amounts.
Okay.
So I think the scope gives you a good sense of the type of services that we're talking with them about. But the amounts and also the method of costing is something I wouldn't bring forward in that form. So we have been working on it, but that's gonna take a little more work. So I think if the select board was to say, we don't want to have anything like this on the warrant, then I'll not waste time continuing to work on that, but assuming there is support to continue to work on that idea, then that's something that I will continue to be kind of sharpening our pencil on both the scope and the budget. So that before it is referred to FinCom, there's more meat on the bones. And just for those of you who haven't had a chance to, pull up so this is kind of this is the proposal we got. This followed a meeting. I had a meeting with Brian Colleran and with myself and Butch and Paul back in July. I had invited a proposal. This is the proposal he'd sent. And I think the narrative is good. I think it's the reason I put it in there, I think it's well worth reading. This will give you a good sense of the direction we're going. But for instance, a fixed fee for something, that's not how we're doing it. So I want to refine that. And also I'm working with Butch and Paul on and actually, I mean, I think that article request form that I wrote, I think it really sets out pretty clearly like where we're trying to go with this, which is essentially to have the invasive contractor continue under contract for actual treatment of the field. In a way I would best describe as essentially part of Butch's stable of vendors. So that if he sees knotweed or he sees something that he needs addressed, that this vendor would be under his direction to go out and actually treat that. So that would be one part of the scope, is the actual licensed applicator, the herbicide and so forth. And that would be focused on Cherry Hill and Riverbend, where those are already fully permitted with Concom and Natural Heritage. But also Butch and Paul and I did feel adding pipe stage Mill Pond, specifically the butterfly garden, would be a really smart move. So, but the point is, our focus, the way we're going about this is there would be a clear identification of which parcels would be treatment parcels. But then also, we think that Brian can be helpful to the town in thinking more, big picture. What are the parcels that the town wants to invest these resources on? Not for the current, but for like going forward for future years. And for what purpose? What are the benefits the town is seeking? Because depending on what your objectives are, it's going to depend on what type of treatment, how aggressive you are, and so forth. And so I think having him involved with, I think the narrative is pretty good. How best to prioritize invasive management resources, including town labor and equipment, i.e. DPW highway, professional invasive management, seasonal volunteer intern support, i.e. summer land stewards, and as available volunteer support from local residents and supporting organizations such as WN2. Those are kind of the types of resources. So really getting to where we have a clear written strategic plan that in my conception would be kind of like parcel specific. I think would go a long way toward really getting to where we can plan our work our plan, rather than right now we're just in this kind of endless cycle of like, there's a lot of different opinions on it. And so we'd like to get to where the custodial entities for those properties that are prioritized for treatment, whether that's the select board or the Concom, is in some future scenario asked to act on. This is going to be our plan for property X, and that would then be the marching orders for Butch and the deployment of contracted resources, or the deployment of volunteer or seasonal resources. So I think it's a great approach, but we're still, working on kind of scope and budget. But I do think this narrative, I think, stands up pretty well, and hopefully you'll find it, pretty clear.
So is Brian somebody that could write a management plan? I don't know what his.
Well, so this is one of the conversations we want to have is because the way Butch and Paul and I are thinking about it, which might not be what you guys are thinking about as this plays out, we're not thinking long, detailed written management plans. We're thinking a map with marked up areas and a clear legend. Like, that's more what we envision, is something that's clear, that's like, it's, but if he could do either, yeah, he could do that. But like, those are some of the things that, like, there's so many different groups having these conversations and different people have different objectives. And we want to get to where we're really focused on the custodial entities and they can involve everyone in those conversations, but to where decisions can be made. And this is all gonna play out over time. I mean, one point I made in my narrative is that one of the draft action items in the draft OSRP action plan is to develop an open space management plan for town-owned parcels, which will address invasive species and plans that eradicate and control invasive species on town-owned parcels. That's a draft, but so I think that this article would actually kind of be advancing that objective. So if that's not a board objective, we shouldn't be doing it. But if it is, then I think this would help us build on, some, I think, momentum, with all that's gone on in the last, 4 to 5 years, both in awareness and actual invasive management.
Okay.
But I think pinning down, like, what is the town's policy objective is really, like, super important. So I think, Butch and Paul have a lot to offer. I'm more a facilitator. I don't have any, like, specialized knowledge on this. I'm more trying to get them to talk and, like, get my head around it. But Brian Collerman is a real expert on this stuff. And, so I think having him be able to zoom in and like, actually serve as essentially, so not just a treatment consultant, but almost like a strategic consultant on this, I think could be really helpful.
So that is on our priorities list, right?
Yeah, it is.
For the immediate term?
I don't recall, to be honest with you.
Yes, invasive species permitting and contract management. So
Yeah.
that's okay. I mean, one of the things we said last week was that we weren't gonna put stuff on the warrant if it wasn't
Right.
in that time
Right.
frame.
I mean, this one's a little bit, it's a little bit, there's multiple phases, because like right now, we are continuing to, there's still funds under a prior contract for the treatment of Cherry Hill and River Bend. So that's like already been going on for 2 years, is going on. He didn't do any treatment when he was out there on Monday, but when he was out there in July, he did. So like, that's kind of like it's overlaps. We're trying to bring it to the next phase and get additional funding, both for additional treatment activities and just to get to a strategic plan, so we can really try to make more efficient use of staff time to do what's been agreed on instead of arguing about what hasn't been agreed on.
Right. I mean, at some point, if this is a objective of the town, it should just be in the operating budget of DPW, right?
Yeah, well, that's another thing that you'll see when you see his proposal is there's certain aspects that he's put in there as per year. And those are things I wanna fully understand, and I know you'll wanna fully understand before kind of going forward. So like he's saying, not we just, but he has, like Cherry Hill, he had a certain amount per year. So before, and this is why this is, as much as there's a lot of groundwork and a lot of work that's been done, it's not ready for prime time. And so I would say this is a perfect example of an article. I'm happy to make the FinCom aware of it and just to keep you guys apprised, but I don't want to be seeking a recommendation until it's more fleshed out.
And is there enough money left to get us through the spring in the prior?
I would have to, it's been a month or two since I've looked closely at the numbers, and I think in terms of treatment, there might be.
I was just wondering if this could be related to the spring.
It potentially could. I mean, just to be clear, I asked him to give me a proposal.
Yep.
So, he did it because I asked, and, I wanted to have the option and to give the board the option. But I that's one thing I can get you is, pardon me, what their remaining balance on the prior article is. Because if that takes us to spring, then it may be something you might want to postpone.
I gotta find out what he uses. I have it on my property.
I assume you guys will jump in if you have questions.
All right, next one, town building energy audits, I don't know, so we didn't,
Just gonna jump in.
I did not write an article request because I had a sense that that probably might not be, so I just put in a placeholder.
Okay.
And I said, if the board wants me to pursue this, I'll write an article request. And what I did do is we had this, recent Zoom meeting last Tuesday with B2Q, myself, Caitlin and Brian. I thought that'd be a good opportunity, it was just a 30-minute, just to kind of talk about this whole an energy audit versus an energy audit. One thing he made us aware of is there's a national grid program, a CBA program, comprehensive building assessment, where on the Zoom call, he said that can fund $10,000 to $15,000 of a study like this. So, I don't know where you want to go with this. So all I did was kind of put in the email thread just to give you kind of an up to date kind of sense of where we were on this. But I haven't gone any further than that. And I actually just got this last night at 8:24. So
So where was that on priority on our work list?
Next, like near term, which is January and June. And that's what we did.
So this is when I'll look to take direction from the board as to whether to, flesh this out or whether to kind of put a pin in it until a future cycle. Pay prior fiscal year bills, that's straightforward. There was that one for the decarbonization roadmap. That's,
That one.
yep, that one.
That should be a penalty. You have to wait at one town meeting if you do that.
To be clear, it was partly the vendor. I mean, I think it was primarily really the vendor. I don't know why they sent the invoice to. I mean, I signed the contract. We had an emails exchange
Have
back.
you shared with Ross and Chris?
I think I copied.
I know the story, I'm not gonna bring it up publicly.
Yeah, no, it's so, and I think they,
Yeah.
it might have gone to someone's spam folder, but somehow it didn't get to me until 2 months after it was sent, and it wasn't sent till mid-May, for a contract that signed in July, so. So that's the most, so the balance there, the 5,600, 5,000 of that is about that.
There's a couple other small ones, right?
Smaller, yes, yeah,
Alright.
yeah. And then, convey easement, I, put in a write-up, I think the article request there, I think is good, that one, I mean, that's a good example of one that I think is definitely ready. I mean, again, like, we don't have the easement drawn up, we don't have the easement legal language, we don't have the exhibit, but I think the intent of it is clear. If that's enough for FinCom to make its recommendation on, you could refer this one to them. If, it's probably gonna be, at least 4 weeks before we actually have an easement drawn up. I am in correspondence with Rich Williams. He called me up, earlier today. He is gonna get me a proposal before I leave town. I'm going to New York next week, so I'll have something from him, I expect tomorrow. As long as I can absorb that cost in the operating budget, I can sign an agreement and get the easement drawn up. We'll also, as you know, later tonight in the public agenda, we'll be we're reviewing the questions from town council, so we can give her clear direction on what we want the easement to allow and not allow. So there's still some work to do on this. Conceptually, I think it's very clear what we're trying to do, but the details aren't gonna come together for another 4 to 5 weeks, because as you know, this wasn't even on our radar until, July, so. Let's
You
see.
should have said, you can jump in and ask a question if you have.
That's for the potential overlay?
Yeah.
Well, it's not for the,
Well, that was what the impetus for it, but we think it's a good idea whether or not that is.
Whether it happens or
Yeah,
not, okay.
yes. Yeah, it's this weird situation where the property is 100% landlocked, which you really almost never see. There is no legal frontage. So the concept is, and obviously in practice, they cross and recross, and under common law or certain aspect of like, adverse possession, like a case could be made, they already have the right, but they don't have a formal right to cross and recross. So as a housekeeping matter, whether this ended up being a proposed MBTA district or not, just from a housekeeping matter, it makes sense to grant this parcel legal rights to cross and recross over the, so it's just a matter of having a surveyor drop a recorded plan and having town council drop an easement document, which would then be, it would require a town meeting vote to convey an easement because it is an interest in property. And there are certain things that select board has authority to do, but it's very limited. An easement like that would require town meeting vote, so.
So there's really not a financial interest?
No, there's really not.
I mean, unless you would consider giving up, an easement to be a negative impact on the town.
Yeah,
So can I throw a monkey wrench in this?
of course.
Oh, no monkey wrench.
I'd rather now than on the
Left
worst
hand
town
monkey
meeting.
wrench, the worst time.
No, monkey wrenches on the outside are great.
So if we're granting them a benefit, the housing authority. What's in it for me?
Well, that's one of the questions town council asked that's on for discussion later tonight.
Well, the annex,
That's a,
right? They own the land under it, we own the building. How
That's
about
true.
transferring that land to us, the town, in exchange for the.
I think that's a great idea. I mean, I raised that very concern.
It clears up another little quagmire.
It does, because that is just such a weird situation. I don't know how that was able to happen. But, the town owns the building, the housing authority owns the land that the building sits on.
So why is it not shown? Oh, I guess it is shown on the lot line there.
Yeah. And I have no idea how that was allowed to happen decades
I
ago.
would suggest cleaning up both problems at the same time, usually beneficial.
But it's something I have had to explain. But when I was first brand new and working with insurance, and I made them aware of the situation, they had not known this. And we had to put in place basically indemnifications between us and the housing. It's a very unusual situation. And if there was, for instance, a catastrophic fire, our building is insured, but we don't actually control the land the building sits on. It's a very weird, it's just a West Newbury thing. It's just one of those West Newbury things that we, this.
Keep popping up.
Well, I found this one in 2018. I mean, I've known, it's just one of these things that's like. So I think Chris's suggestion has merit. I think it's probably gonna have complexities because it's obviously the annex is physically connected to the housing authority.
And the septic system.
There's a shared
Maybe
septic.
a lot of documents that make it up that you own the land, but the.
Which might be the right answer, but you'll acknowledge that's a complexity.
Well, I agree. It might push this off the fall warrant, but I think if you're gonna address it, let's do it right.
But we would need this if this was the site for a MBTA,
Right.
so. Yeah. All right, good point. Let's keep it under consideration.
All right.
So the easement has to happen in tandem with MBTA.
Yeah, you have to show
We
access.
wouldn't be able to do it as a package deal if,
Well, I mean, if they agree to it,
yeah.
If they agree in concept, I don't know why the timing would have to prove that,
Okay, next one, MBTA. Zoning, obviously the location selection is the critical path there. Housing livable communities is actively reviewing the pre-adoption submittals, their response is pending. They have told us, they have guaranteed us that we will have a written response no later than next week. I have reemphasized with them that it would be absolutely important to receive something on or before Tuesday. Because of the timelines associated with referring a bylaw to planning board for public hearing. That's supposed to happen 65 days prior to town meeting, with a November 3rd town meeting, that brings us to August 30th. So in order for the select board to refer something by August 30th, it would have to be done next week. So we need a letter from them. ASAP.
so. I don't know if you floated the idea with Chris and Ross.
I can't remember, but I think I mentioned to Chris that there might need to be a meeting next Thursday. I don't think I mentioned it to Ross.
Did he say something?
Well, Well, I mean, you understand the timing issue, right? Yeah, I mean,
do next Thursday.
yeah, okay. Great. All right,
One other thing,
Are we scheduling a meeting for next Thursday?
yeah, well, I think we need to. We don't
I mean,
want,
they haven't given us a guarantee we'll get it Tuesday, but they have given us a guarantee, and this was just earlier this week, they assured us that we would have a letter next week. I emphasized to them both on a call and then more recently an email, just to remind them that August 30th date is pretty important. Now, if the select board was to refer zoning after August 30th, that is not fatal. The planning board can still have its hearing. But the only way to ensure no procedural flaw is to refer it outside of 65 days. If you refer it within 65 days and the planning board doesn't have a hearing.
I think we can't take any chances.
Yeah. I mean, you could always, if you had to, you could push November 3rd to November 10th, but again, like if we're trying to hold the line on the date, I think that August 30th thing is pretty important. One other thing, and this is maybe a side conversation for Wendy, but the whole thing, as you know, we have MVPC. Part of their scope is reviewing the bylaw to ensure it is compatible with any of the sites. We need to make sure that we're gonna have that timely to make sure, because I did include in this package the bylaw that had been proposed previously. Obviously, I blanked out all of the locations because that decision has not been made. But we do need to hear from Ian.
He said he was working on it.
I know.
Okay, all
Yeah,
right,
so
so,
we just need to make sure
Yeah.
he is aware of our timeline so that, because in my opinion, as a former town planner, I suspect he will say that for 2 of the 3 sites, it could go forward perfect just as is. But the 3rd site, namely this one, where it's more complex,
yeah, it's a different density. of the
yeah,
site.
like he may say, I mean, if I was the town planner working on this or planning consultant, I think I would probably feel that, some of what's in here may not be applicable if this is the location. So that's something that, again, becomes kind of a critical path issue. And it's just difficult because the location decision is so important to those things.
Mhm.
And we kind of have been in a holding pattern, waiting for the state now for, well, it feels like a long time.
Okay,
So MBTA zoning, next special event permits bylaw, and this is really simply to codify the longstanding process and to kind of formalize that and give it the, clear, authority of town council, and that would also have the effect of making that actually enforceable as a bylaw rather than simply, under the select board's more general authority under their, Mass General law. The next 2 relate to Finance Committee and Capital Improvements Committee bylaw. So, Wendy, do you wanna speak to those, or do you want me to cover the last 2 and then jump back to that? So the next one, this is proposed adoption of Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section 22F. This is something that I had not been familiar with, but Amanda brought to our attention, and I think she did a nice job on the article request. And there's a IGR in there from the state, or yes, like this guide, yes, IGR. That basically, for communities that adopt this MGL, it gives specific authority for the changing of fees through action of without town meeting action. So it's I would present this as generally a housekeeping article. It's been on the books for a long time, but it turns out the town had never adopted it. And then finally, street acceptance for Major Boyd Drive. I did reach out to Mike Crow. Wendy and I had met with him, midsummer. I had mentioned to him the timeline of tonight's meeting, and we had not heard anything, so I reached out to him yesterday. And so he got me this letter. I had talked to him about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and he said they were very close to have the street acceptance plan of the as-built. So he's still in the final state. We don't have that in front of us, but he did send us a letter, which I would hope would be enough to get this on the warrant. And then, once we receive those documents, then there's a whole process that would be followed of essentially referring that to the planning board for them to review or get back to you and all of that, so. And then finally, the only one not in my memo was the one that Fred mentioned of this, proposed resolution. That was the only one that came in that was not on my list.
So that's something that Casey just generally does not like, but I mean, it doesn't mean we can't put it on
Oh, what did he call it? A,
resolution, non-binding resolution.
yeah, Casey's rejected those before. He says,
I don't know, I mean, to me, I don't see the, if there's 100 or 200 people there, that's not really the will of the town, so I feel like.
if they're gonna vote the 30 grand, they're gonna vote the resolution, so it's there,
Yeah, no, his point is if we don't vote for 30,000.
I think he gets his message sent right there, you don't have to have him
Well,
say, will you support us again? We just slapped you, you know?
Well, he's saying if it's not on the warrant, they would want this alternative article on the warrant.
Yeah, instead of the fate being decided by the board, being decided by the town at the meeting.
But but what I'm saying is that really the town? It's a very small,
Right,
but anyway. So the capital, I think we've talked about this before. I'm working on revising the finance committee bylaw to incorporate the things that are in the financial policy for capital planning. So I'm meeting with Elisa and Judy on Monday just to get their input on it. But the intent, or the suggestion is to rescind the CIC bylaw and change this, the finance committee want to incorporate that stuff. So I did want to meet with the finance committee first, once they finish that, to make sure they're on board before I back us to look at and approve.
Good idea.
Okay. So where are we gonna go from here? If I don't know how long a meeting you wanna have next week. Or do we wanna go through and you say which ones you wanna discuss before you leave, if you're not gonna be here on the 4th? That means Ross and I are gonna roll what's on and off the warrant. So how would you like to proceed so that your input is counted? Are there any that you question that should be on or not?
Yeah, not enough to question them.
What's that?
Not enough to make a question on them, yeah. I think I'm more liberal with moving things forward on the warrant than you would be. I think somebody's put the effort in and submitted it, unless there's something really wrong with it.
What if it's not on our work plan?
That's why I was asking them some of these.
Yeah, so the library one's not on the work plan. Invasive species is, the audits is, next. Not this cycle, the next
I
cycle.
would tend to put the library one on, for me, so I'm not gonna say take it off, let's put it that way. So the chips fall at that point.
So do you wanna be part of the conversation? I guess I'm trying to figure out timing. If you wanna be
No,
part,
I'll be here for the meeting on the 4th, that's fine, I'm willing to go with.
so there's none of these that you wanna advocate that we should not have on the warrant. That is, all
That's correct.
right. So
And just to be clear, I think you said this 4 different ways but that discussion is whether they're on the warrant, not the board's recommendation. That would be at a later date, the full board expressed.
I tend to, if it's something I disagree with, still put it on the warrant in general. I think it's more appropriate to have town decide, unless there's a real flaw.
But I think that's where we've gotten into trouble, where we put things on the warrant, and once it's voted by town meeting, it's a required project. Now,
If I could, I heard you say that last Thursday.
Yeah.
I did not want to contradict you,
you
but
don't think that's true?
it is not true.
That's how it's been treated in the past.
That's how it's been treated. I think it's appropriate to handle it that way, because I think if the town appropriates money to buy a truck, that's the will of the town, and I think it absolutely makes sense to essentially treat that as a requirement, because the town's. But Mike McCarron used to say this all the time, and he was correct. A vote of town meeting, so for instance, to acquire land, a vote of town meeting to acquire land authorizes the select board to acquire the land. It does not compel the select board. The select board is still the select board. McCarran used to say that all the time, so I didn't want to get into it last week because I'm not trying to split hairs, but legally, it's not required. There's a presumption that you're gonna go forward, because why have the voters appropriate funds if you have no intention to do it? But it is not a legal requirement. That's still the chief executive. Legislature can appropriate money, the chief executive still does have the role of the chief executive as to how to manage those appropriations.
Is that the case with this article where it's sponsored by the library board?
Well, I think if that was approved and that was an article they brought forward, that would then be under their.
Well, the article request is for 30,000 from the town.
Right.
They'll pay the rest, so.
But like it wouldn't be added to like the town's work plan per se.
Well, I think that's
I think they
debatable.
do, I don't know.
I mean, I think, this is something that I know you guys haven't read this, because it just came in today.
You said you sent this an email to us?
So I sent this packet, this is, I think about 90 some odd pages. This went out late last night about 10 o'clock. And then today, there were some additional items that either came in today or came in after close of business yesterday, so I didn't have access to. That was an additional, it's about 45 pages, but it's not that much. That's because the library appended to it their strategic plan, which is 40 pages. So it's really like 3 items, but it's, when you open it and see 45 pages, it's not, don't be daunted, because if you've already read the strategic plan, that's most of the length of this. But there's, I did take the time to read this today. I just had gotten it today, but there is something in the narrative, which I do think is something you will probably share. My question is, it says, assuming the consultant provides all services needed to support the study, no costs at this time. It's anticipated the library director and other library board members will interface with the consultant and a few meetings during the preparation of the study. Town employees would not need to be involved unless they deem it pertinent and unless they're time. That's, I suspect you share my question about that.
Yeah, I kind of feel like this whole working group has been a sham. Almost. All right,
If you could just elaborate on that, because I think for those reading the minutes, they might take that a certain way, and I know you don't mean it that way. It's
how
been,
do I mean?
those of us who've been attending the meeting, you and I and many other people have been working in good faith, so in that sense, it's.
All right, I'm sorry, yeah.
Not a
You
shame.
don't write sham in the minutes, yes. No, it's just the library has an agenda and they are viewing this as their thing, and them. The working group should support what they want, so. I talked to Corinne and asked for her to call me today, but he didn't, but I feel like. We don't need a feasibility study, we need like a master plan for the library.
That's what we sort of started with at the last meeting, so we gotta back up to the beginning.
I know. So I mean, if an architect did it's called a facility, comprehensive plan for a library, a lot of libraries do it. And out of that, they would look at the restrictions on the site, like parking, footprint, and then they would propose a plan that incorporates all that stuff in section 3 that the library wants. And then it's a consultant presenting it to the town, it's not the library. I just think that'd be a more effective way to do it. From that, you can get a conceptual design and then, move it forward from there, but. I think, it's kind of late in this whole process to kind of change the. But I have an RFP from.
Never too late to stop and do the right thing.
Well, that's what I thought, Corinne was on board, but the library trustees will have to meet and discuss it, so.
Well, and I do think, I did, because I was reading this after you and I had corresponded earlier today, and I think that there is something in here that maybe it was in the resolution, that they prepared. I think it might have been that, but there is a reference that suggests, here it is. Be it further resolved, the community hereby expresses support for the initiation of a master plan or feasibility study. So I assume that came from the conversation you had with Corinne that then found its way into.
All right.
into
They give it a multiple choice.
What is this whereas? Be it resolved. It's interesting,
Very legalese.
yeah. All right, so I mean, I guess, this could be a placeholder then, and, perhaps the working group is supposed to meet in 3 weeks,
18th, I think.
Yeah, so maybe there will be an opportunity.
Not the 18th, no, the 5th. Whatever, yeah, because we
Week
give
after
after
Labor
the
Day,
18th.
yeah.
But yes,
All right, so. So we're not gonna stick to something has to be on the project list,
the 8th. The 8th.
Again, it's squishy because the library is sort of like their own entity.
but they cannot do this project on their own, they need a project engineer, I mean. Yeah, and if town money is in it, I definitely want the town,
Therefore should have gone on the plan.
yeah.
It's not on there, you say.
Yeah, no, it's not.
Okay.
The only thing on there is for the immediate term is participating in the working group in Chang's and I. As well as, Sam. So,
It won't take that much time anyway.
But, to your point, Wendy, about like, so, how would they get it onto the work plan if not through a town warrant article?
well, if they had come to the chair's meeting or communicated with me anytime between then and now. And I specifically said at the working group meeting earlier this week that it was not on the work plan. Crickets, so.
One other thing, and I'll just make the board aware of that there's a legal question pending because I think it's relevant to this scenario of, let's say, for instance, they self-funded out of the library trust. Or let's say kind of the way it was represented in that narrative where it would kind of be the library overseeing it. We had gotten a written opinion from town council several years ago back in 2023 regarding procurement and just to document what Wayne and I already knew, which is that procurement applies regardless whether the funding comes from the town or the library. It's still public funding because there was some pushback at that point about that. So I sent a follow-up question to our contracts attorney, Tom McEnany, saying, and I'll just read it to them. So I said, "Hi, Tom, I have a question for you following on the attached opinion. Board of Library Trustees is preparing to propose a feasibility study and or building conditions assessment to evaluate potential design options and associated cost implications of renovation and or expansion of the library. At this time, it is not known whether the source of funding for this study would be funds under the library board's authority, i.e. the library trust, and or from town funds such as free cash. Is it correct that the town's designer selection procedures, which is a section of procurement law, would apply regardless of the source of funding? Or if the study were to be funded solely from funds under the Board of Library Trustees authority, would these designer selection procedures not apply? If the designer selection procedures would not apply, what would govern the process of engaging an architect or designer for a project such as this?" I went on to ask, assuming that designer selection procedures do apply, do they apply in full? For example, would the select board in this instance be the approving body as that term is defined in the procedures? Embedded in my question, which entity would be the selection or awarding authority for the designer and architect? So that's a material issue. I just sent that question out Tuesday night, so, I haven't had a response yet, but that got me thinking because, they do have significant funds. They could appropriate their own funds to a study, but it's still public money. It's under their authority, but that doesn't mean it's exempt from Mass General Law. So I don't know the answer to that. We'll get a response from Tom, but Tom McEnany, he may, if he was to advise that designer selection applies, even if it's funded from the library trust, that, and we'll see, we'll see what he applies, but it's a town owned property. So it's just this whole, like, the library has significant independence under Mass General Law, there's no doubt about that. But there do end up being these finer points of what's the line, it's still a town entity.
Well, that's the problem, it isn't even the cost of the study, I mean, that's not the numbers. Once you get the study, there's the reasonable expectation that you're gonna move forward with the project.
Mhm.
And if it's not even on the work plan, to start moving forward on that, it's gonna get up time that. If we have any idea what's gonna get used.
So, I mean, we did go through the concerns the select board had at the last working group meeting. I think Fred put costs in there. I haven't looked at it yet, but he was intending to use unit costs from a
He did,
a
yeah.
recent library expansion. So I think it was like, you know, the total was times.
Yeah, it was on the order of, 3.4 to. I mean, there are all these scenarios and it was hard for me to kind of follow exactly how it was presented, but they had looked at a number of, different library projects, square footage, cost per square foot. Some notes on that, and then based on different scenarios of what kind of the extent of work might be in the West Newbury Library. Anywhere 3.3 to, close to $10 million. So this has to be taken with a huge grain of salt.
No, it's an order of magnitude. I mean,
Yeah.
I think when Amanda was talking about 20 to 40 million. I mean,
Well, that was town Linfield, obviously,
Right.
different scale, yeah. But it's a non-trivial number, I think that's certainly clear.
Yeah, and for me, it's more of the timing, if we're gonna be doing the page thing at the same time, we're trying to do this and, you know.
And Whittier, I mean, it's not, we're a small fish in that pond, but we saw how that affected our time for those few months. I mean, that was like all hands on deck, and there were a lot of things that got, they either got pushed aside or we were working around the clock to keep up with what else we were doing, we all still in Whittier.
All right, so, Joe, as it stands now, you're fine with everything, and you'll let Ross and I decide.
In general terms, but we're not. Removing any of these tonight.
No,
That would be
but
very
since you won't,
right.
exactly, but you won't be here at the next meeting when we do vote to put things on or take them off, so I just wanna make sure that your thoughts are reflected.
I'm
And it
gonna
sounds
go and print this out, and I'll let you know if there's anything.
There's a hard copy that we printed for you, it's in your.
This thing, this last Thursday, more in there, lots of enjoy. I thought it was this, cause this is part of it, well, this is not the whole packet, so.
No, that was just a supplement that went up today.
Supplement to the supplement of the supplement, so packet.
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
All right, so review of draft schedule calendar between now and special time meeting, I guess we kind of went through that, right?
We did, and I think the main thing was just that we're now closing really 2 weeks before normal and town meetings a week after normal, so I'd rather have things referred on the 4th and be ready rather than too soon, and then that's just not productive.
Okay.
But Dennis, I'm happy to share, this packet with you. And so at least you guys can know what might be coming, even though it's not gonna be for you for formal recommendation.
I'm actually thinking maybe we should change the meeting to like the 4th
Mhm.
instead of a premature meeting.
Unless, with this bylaw, I do know you wanted to talk with FinCom about the capital planning process, so you might want them to go ahead. Anyway, you guys can work that out.
Yeah. Okay. I'll have my people call your people.
All right. So I won't change the 28th until I hear from you then.
Yeah.
Okay. I am away, I'm coming back the 27th,
Oh,
so that you can. You can communicate with me though, I
all right,
And the agenda is all drawn up, it just hasn't been posted yet. So.
okay, good.
Has the library board of trustees been requested to engage in getting us onto the work plan? And that's the first step.
Right,
Do they know that? They must be aware of it.
they did not come to the chairs meeting, even though I sent 3 emails to all the chairs explaining the purpose of it, and at the working group meeting. Where 2 members of the trustees were there, I said, it's
Okay.
not on the work plan.
Chose not to say.
I didn't say specifically, do you want me to put it on the work plan? Yes, I should have.
I guess since that time, has there been discussion of it now that they're aware of it? Folks, you can
So on.
thank you.
There's
I'd
that.
like to hear more of your thoughts on us meeting separately though. You have a lot of experience on FinCom, right? At some point, thank you.
Thank you.
You bet.
I mean, are they just, I guess I'm curious if they're not intending to request it on a work plan and move forward without it.
Yeah, if we don't pass, if we don't put it on or it fails, they'll just do it themselves, they have that money.
Again, it's not the money,
No,
it's,
but I'm saying that's from their point of view, they're just,
they're gonna put it on the warrant. If the town says, now how do they put it on the warrant?
You know, not put on the
Yeah.
warrant, self-fund it out of their.
Oh, okay. So that's easy.
But
but it will. have-
certainly the town would, wanna be fully engaged in a process like that, and that would be in their interest as well, so that it's not done in a vacuum.
Okay, there's my point. They're working in a vacuum. If they've chosen not to put this on the work plan, that's working in a vacuum, not gonna let us even know it's on the radar. How do we know it's something significantly important to them if they,
Oh, they're probably soon because Agnes and I are on a working group that. Here in the water.
go shovel the walkway in the winter too? You gotta be careful with this.
All right. So you take a look at it and you're gonna let Angus know if there's anything, or. Yeah,
And remember, Chris, I am out next week,
Right, that was another question. We have a meeting next Thursday.
I can't be there.
We're gonna run road, baby.
I mean, the intent of the meeting would just be to refer, well, actually, we need to decide on a site and then a location.
Yeah, I prepped Rebecca a bit that, there could be,
All right, do you wanna just move forward to that? The general discussion item, see while we're on the topic.
sure,
Okay,
do it, and be here,
yeah, so. So I guess if we're gonna meet next week, Chris, and my original thought was you weren't gonna be here when we met, so I wanted to have an understanding of what your priorities were for the three locations, but if we're meeting next week, we can talk about it then.
Okay.
The other things I wanted to talk about is just whether we're gonna bring NAP or not. I know that I've heard there's a lot of, chatter on Facebook about, NAP. Other things that are, the planning board is wanting us to bring multiple parcels, so I thought it might be good for us to just kind of, not decide, but just talk about how we see this going through town meeting, what the best way to approach it is.
So I'll just, I don't want to get into the whole discussion. When you had a call for input on parcels, I sent a pretty extensive letter. I think the first paragraph said, I think you have to take naps off the table. I think that will taint anything else, so I will never support that. I can't see that it's appropriate to based on the previous vote.
Yeah.
I think it'd be so disrespectful. Got a pretty significant, clear message on that last
Yeah.
time, so.
What do you think, Russ?
Yeah, I can't. Especially whereas it hasn't really been, I don't think it's been talked about at all. At any of the working group presentations, so.
Yeah.
I would be surprised for a lot of people.
well, just, I don't disagree with what you said at all, but just the working group's scope was specifically other parcels, so that's why, I mean, that might not be the only reason why, but that was really outside the scope of the work group, but I can imagine for people trying to follow along from home, that
Right.
might.
Yeah, the group kind of resembles what's being considered.
Yeah. Right,
It was so disingenuous to bring that back after that vote.
I mean, maybe if you listed it last, if it would incentivize people to vote for something before it. But I agree, of course, it probably just poison the whole process.
Yeah.
So-
Discussion next week will be fun.
Yeah, so what about bringing multiple apartment, locations across, you're kind of alluding to it. My concern in having two in there is it just. Putting NAP on there, whether it's second or not, could take the whole thing so much that, we lose votes on the parcel we do want,
I think you're right, troops all up again.
yeah.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering if we could, have an article that say approves or asks to approve two locations, and then maybe we could make a motion within four corners of that article saying to just approve one of the two, and if it fails, then, but maybe it could just be two separate articles and.
You try an article like that, Casey's gonna come to your house personally.
Really?
She doesn't like, but it makes it almost impossible.
Like amended, yeah. So it would
It is a
then,
philosophical question, this group makes a recommendation to the select board, or are they just saying, here are the three parcels, and the state approved all or none?
Mhm.
and the select board thinks the bigger.
Yeah, so the timing is kind of tricky. It was originally conceived that the working group would get the results from the state and then decide among ourselves a recommendation, and the select board wouldn't have to follow it. But I just don't see that happening. If we don't get the letter until next Wednesday, there's not time to call a working group.
That gets sticky if that committee, whatever it's called, makes a recommendation and then we don't go
Mhm.
with it. I would,
I mean, one thought is we could invite the working group to our meeting next Thursday and discuss it together, you know? Yeah. What do you think, Chris?
again, I think it locks you in.
Well, two members of the working, well, Angus won't be here, I guess, but. So it's me, Rob, and Scott, hopefully. I think the town planner is not.
Statutorily, it's the select board that makes this selection.
Yeah,
You take your recommendation, if you say A and we sit there and say C. It's terrible, bad book. I'd rather have them present the ones that have met the criteria through Merrimack Valley Planning and through the state. Say, now it's your opportunity to pick the parcel.
how would you feel about inviting the working group members that were available and just having them be part of the discussion, but not make a recommendation? We just.
That's fine. I mean, I think that's true,
That's how-
yeah.
I think that's good, okay.
I mean, we haven't heard from them yet, really. I mean, I hear from Rob. Sometimes,
Yeah,
yeah, so make that,
okay. Do we want to publicize it so people can listen in? I mean, it's a public meeting anyway,
Yeah.
but,
it's fine.
alright.
Yeah, I mentioned to Rebecca that, you know, again, we're all gonna holding pattern until the state letter comes through, but once it does, I told her there may be, you know, an interest in doing a broad, you know, just as much as we can in a short amount of time, but to get the word out as broadly as we can, that would be a topic of discussion.
Okay, so that's a good reason not to try to discuss warrant articles next week.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right, let's finish up action items, review and approve the proposed trail maintenance framework. So I discussed this with Concom, they only had a very minor edit, just added one sentence to first paragraph. So if this is something that you're ready to support.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
I started thinking, because it seemed like a short list. Cherry Hill, parcel on there, not on the list, it's town owned,
Who's that one by?
so it's the town of West Newbury. We don't, and same with, I'm gonna throw one out, I'm sure I'll get some blowback for this one, but Page School, because I've always had the understanding it was a school and so much perimeter area versus the whole parcel.
Well, River Bend is on here.
Red River Bend's there, Page School goes down, they're two separate parcels. Page
No, it's
School,
the same parcel. River Bend is along the river and the parcel that goes out. to
I looked at the maps, I believe that Page is on one and River Bend is generally on another. Yeah. River Bend and Page, that should be, yeah, Concom there, this is the town.
Yeah.
And I always had the understanding, and Angus has said differently at the Page School meeting that. The school district control the whole parcel, I had a.
No, they don't.
No,
No.
the least area.
No, that.
Right, okay, so there is a lot of trail behind there that is not,
Yeah, so I guess we need to have two River Bend, one, the part that's owned by the town. The select board, and the other that's.
I always thought this is River Bend to the easterly.
The whole area that's.
Well, because we already own Page before we got River Bend.
Right,
So-
so from Coffin Street is River Bend West is what it's called, where the trails are to Coffin Street. So that's the select board, so I'll just add that.
Okay, so yeah, I'm just curious. if
Yeah,
it's on there.
yeah. Perry Hill, I'm not sure about. Is
Well,
it-
there's no, there's no man, so I think the intent in putting in this list was the written documents that already kind of govern.
No, I mean, I intended to put all that this.
Well, for Cherry Hill, it's not subject to a CR.
Right, so
So-
it must be the select board then.
Yeah, so there would be no document to reference here.
No, so the list on the prior page is just parcel or properties that this would.
Oh, I was sorry, I was looking at this list, yeah.
Yeah. All right, so I'll add Cherry Hill, and did you think of any others, Chris?
Page.
Yeah, I'll add River Bend.
No, I mean, that's the ones I could think of, where we're at.
Yeah, and one thing just, several years ago, I realized that there was nothing in the town GIS, showing the leased area, so we had MVPC put together this. And it's weird, for some reason, they put it as a separate layer.
Mm.
So it's kind of obscure, but if you go into my map and you scroll down, there's this PRSD leased area. And this green cross-hatched area is the extent of the leased area.
I'm actually surprised it goes that far down the hill, because
It's
I know.
much more than yeah, I
well,
don't know,
it's insignificant, it's just
yeah.
unusable.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, maybe.
I thought of others that were curious, but we don't own them, and then, Indian Hill, Hillsway, things like that.
Yeah, Greensboro.
No, other than that, I thought it was great.
Okay. Austin. Just to try to get hold of all stuff. All right, so. Can somebody make a motion to,
Make a motion to approve the trails maintenance plan. That was called. As presented,
management framework,
management framework as presented.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
I should have said this before you voted, but just to say, I did review this with Butch some time ago, and he thought it was great. I think I told you that
Yes.
last meeting, but.
With the additions of the two properties you mentioned.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Okay.
No, I just, as modified.
All right, okay, let's move on to minutes.
Can I make one comment on this?
Sure.
Well, I was looking at this and I want to throw out a particular person's name. Well, maybe we do an executive session or something. There's a person who owns a significant amount of open space land out there.
Where?
It's me, actually. Again, I was just clicking through parcels.
Oh,
This person, this one, this one, this one, this one. They should be at some point engaged as to what if they have plans for the future, if the town or Greenbelt could acquire certain of these parcels, because a lot of them attach to other parcels.
Hmm.
I can give you the name.
okay.
I just don't want to say, I don't want to bring somebody business into the public forum without them.
Mhm. All right, next item is minutes. Any revisions on July 24th?
Yeah, I had one.
Okay,
So on the first page, regular business. Town manager update C for invasive land management. It says capital will express concerns that invasives were carried in on wind or other sources. And that their continued regrowth would cost the town significantly if we chose removal. I didn't listen to the minutes, but I think the intent that I was trying, I think that makes it sound like I'm opposed to invasives, which are remediation, which I'm not, so.
Start the sentence.
Yeah, I think what I was trying to say is something along the lines of Capital Bow observed. That invasives were carried and spread on the wind. And asked if long-term remediation was possible / sustainable.
anything else in those?
That's all I have.
I had some changes to item E correspondence. I actually have this written in a comment that I can just forward to you. So.
Along with the ones from,
Yeah, I know. Well, that's what I'm saying. I had this all written in a comment, so I can just cut and paste the other one. I didn't do that, but I will from now on. So the resident raised concerns about the lack of maintenance of trails shown on the Whetstone Greenway trail maps. Reed noted that developers of property in this area provided the trails or easements without provisions for maintenance or construction. So it wasn't that, individual for cutting through. So if you're okay with that sentence, I'll just,
She'll send it to
I'll
you.
send it to you. Just, yeah, what they're concerned about. Motion approved as amended.
With the minutes, July 24th, 2025 as amended.
Second.
I'll give it. The next minutes, August 7th, I had a question on G. This is about the stamps. Stipulation that a lot of stamp users should be kept, or should that be stamp uses?
users.
I think,
So every time somebody uses it, We put it in the book, so you could say uses,
I thought it was uses.
Yeah.
Yeah, every time the stamp is used,
We wanna know.
that
what
there'd be a log
Mhm.
that it was used.
So both the user and the user, use. Yep. Do you see that, Max?
Yeah, just give me
Item G,
on
page 2.
page 2, G.
CP, CP.
Check the R.
They were doing.
Got it.
Next page on D, the library working group, I do need to rewrite that, which I haven't, it says that there'll be no fall town meeting article, Jennings confirmed, which is not accurate.
At that meeting, this was,
Yeah, I'm. Yeah. So I will send you that along with the other ones. And that's. The last one I have is on correspondence on the top of page 4. It says the board declined a presentation from the open space committee. I would just change that from Carol Decker. Do I have anything else?
I just had one on page 2. F. Where it says she felt that gaining approval of the neighborhood side of the river would potentially require replacement of unsightly chain link fencing. I just thought it would be more accurate to say. Of the Halo side of the river would potentially or could potentially be facilitated by replacement of the chain link. Not really into but work. So
I can look at the minutes of part of 7, so then
7.
On favor?
I. Yeah.
Let's see, general discussion.
oh, so
Item A, update on evaluation of sites with potential to be public projects. So the, Weston Sampson was out today, doing like wetland review and citing potential well location, test well locations. So I don't have the results yet, but, they said that they would provide it to me, by Monday, so I can bring it to the Concom and get permission, hopefully. We want to have that. Open space committee circulation of the open space plan. So the point here is for us to just look at things that the select board is in the category of responsibility, make sure we're in alignment with that. Are there any that we, I guess, you know, whether or not this is in our work plan is a separate question, right?
I skimmed it, I didn't take a deep dive on it, really don't have a lot of input.
You know, any that you're concerned about?
Yeah, there were, I did start to go through it when I first got it, maybe a week, 2 weeks ago. And I only made it through probably half, and it's on my desktop side, but. There were definitely some items that, you know, seemed out of alignment with things that this board's been talking about, so I'd rather just. You know, complete my written
Okay,
review. I know they've asked for comments by the end of next week. So I will, that's something on my list to get done before I leave town for vacation, is to complete that. So maybe if you'd like, what I could do is send it to you,
okay,
and that way you can take what I send and you can either incorporate it or not, because you're the policy setting board, but I'll share my thoughts and then you
okay,
can
that's great.
do that.
Ross, did you have any thoughts?
I it caught my attention, the part about making another effort to enact a wetlands protection bylaw.
Mhm.
But we're not listed as the responsibility for that, so maybe we don't have any input on that, but
Yeah.
I thought that the town of Lynn was pretty clear at the last one. But that's all.
Mhm. Yeah, I was concerned about the first one, develop a comprehensive plan for each large town parcel. Well, I guess before it's sold or subdivided. I'm just not clear on what a comprehensive plan means. I mean, it's gonna be sold or subdivided and I don't know why we need a comprehensive plan for it.
Maybe that's precluded from sale or subdivision.
Yeah, maybe they're trying to preempt something like carving off a portion of town land,
Okay.
other than the absence of some kind of comprehensive plan for the property.
You know,
Yeah, I mean, one thing I had kind of selectively excerpted in my article request for the invasive species, I kind of selectively excerpted
Mhm.
from one of those, and what I left out is, talking about property preservation. Well, no, not just that, but also it's said along the lines of the Mill Pond Pipe State Plan, and as you know, that plan is, I think a lot of people feel there's problems with the plan.
Mhm.
They think the problems are different, like different people think there's different. But the method of amending that plan is something I would never replicate. It is because it's been known to be flawed for many years. And it hasn't been amended because it is such a, enormous procedural process to amend it. I do not think that's in the town's or anyone's interest to have something that's so tightly locked. It's just like a Whittier agreement. I mean, it's like so hard to amend that it's deeply flawed, never knows it's deeply flawed, but you can't amend it. The Pipe State Mill Pond Management Plan is very similar. So I thought holding that up as like the exemplar, I think is something I would be concerned about. There were other things too, talk about restoring the river access committee.
Yeah, I would say no. I mean, anything with a 2026 priority that's not on our work plan, I think we should push back on. What do you think? Chris and Ross?
I think it should be on the work plan that you mentioned in a minute ago. I was gonna ask, while we approach that.
Mhm. What do you think should be on the work plan?
Again, if it's on here and it's not on the work plan, I think that's problematic.
Right, so are you saying we should add everything? I disagree about reestablishing the river access committee, and that's supposed to be done by 2026.
So we would get added, and then it would have to come off of here, correct?
Well, we can strongly, I mean, we don't sign it, right? So,
Uh,
I mean, this is a lot to digest too.
I know,
And they make it sound like it's just to move it on so we dust this thing off.
right? Yeah, I mean, it's not a permit, I mean, it's not a legal commitment. I mean, it's aspirational, but still, I don't want.
But they want you to vote on it. I hate that, but it's not a
Yeah.
commitment. It gets you in trouble.
Yeah. The other one I was concerned about, all the ones that say water department, I think that should be board of water commissioners, although protect drinking water supplies. Wouldn't that be the appropriate body rather than the water department? Okay. All right, well, I will take Angus's.
yeah, I'll
comments
send you
at
my
time.
markups, and, I would say the same thing was said the other night at the planning board. I think if individual members submit comments, I don't think you need to feel compelled to send comments as a board, because he'll be back before you in September. Asking for you to endorse it, or not.
Oh, so we are putting on
You are voting on it. Yeah, whether that's required is debatable.
it. Okay,
But that's been the process that's been set out.
Okay.
So, but I think, Ross, or you, or Chris, you, or Wendy, if you individually, you should all feel empowered, just as anyone should, to send comments on your own behalf if there's things that, you have questions or concerns about, and that will be back before you in September. It is debatable whether that's required or not, because unlike the housing production plan, which has a very detailed regulatory underpinning, and OSRP, there is no comparable mass regulation that sets out what it is, what it has to include, who has to vote it. Our local bylaw does put it under the authority of the Open Space Committee. But I think in terms of if the town is gonna have a publicly approved plan that's, endorsed by the state and posted on the website, I think it's in everybody's interest that that be a plan that is an accurate reflection of the town's policy intent and not, potentially out of line with that.
if you want to give me your comments, I can put it together as from the select board.
Again, this is sort of like when we first got the work plan a couple of years ago. I look at some of the things and I had no idea what a lot of them meant, because there's no background. And I think a lot of these can be the same way. One that just jumps out at me, I I haven't gone through everyone at the level I should. You know, it's under the protect drinking water supply, which under an open space plan, okay. Create a feasibility study to limit connections to town water until new sources are available.
That's, I promise you that is legally indefensible. I can tell you without any doubt.
So I'm looking, okay,
It's
so that's the
legally
first one.
indefensible.
Yeah.
There's decades of case law.
So why is it even in here? That-
It shouldn't be.
And then I start, when I see one, and I got a
In
question.
my opinion, it shouldn't be.
Which one? is
It's
this?
absolutely at odds with.
Under protect drinking water.
Yeah,
supply,
create feasibility.
educate, create feasibility, yeah. So again, then I gotta look at every other one with a finer.
All right, so let me
Nice.
know. All right, I mean, I think if we're not comfortable with this, I think we should say so, even if they don't listen to us, then at least we put it out there that we're not in agreement, nobody can fault us for not. You know, carrying through,
But are we obligated to vote it? Is the other question. If there's no,
we're gonna endorse it.
Or not,
Or
I mean,
not, yeah,
I believe the open space committee could, you know. It is legitimately debatable.
do they want us to vote it if we might not endorse it? There's-
I suspect not. I
Right, so-
suspect they would be suspect they would assert that it's their plan to approve or not.
They only want you to vote if it's gonna be a positive vote, I'm pretty sure.
That's probably a fair assumption.
So,
all right, so why don't we just supply good comments and then. All right, let's move on.
Great.
let's pick an easy topic next.
It's due by the 28th, right?
The end of September, whatever that is.
No, I mean, their comments they've asked.
I think the 29th, next Friday,
All
yeah.
right, so please give me your comments if you have any. All right, MBTA, we did that, MVP grant application.
That's this beautiful colored stairs.
They were gonna do it with flourish.
I was gonna do it with a foot, but I was trying to be discreet, so I don't wanna interrupt the meeting. Too much. to
Oh,
do.
come on now, man.
No, it's
You
not
know-
like that, like that.
Keep glitter in my pocket for a reason.
Hello.
What is that reason, Max?
All right, so we have the memo from Ellen. All right.
I need an extra, you know,
All right,
team work.
so essentially what she said, is that she would not be able to provide us a detailed estimate, that the level of, you know, the accuracy and the numbers she provided here are comparable to what, you know, we presented the first time. So to get a truly accurate, cost proposal, we need to hire a consultant that's actually gonna do the work. So I think that's fine. These numbers, you know, reflect some contingency, and then you saw she said to increase it by a certain percent. 15%. So I think Angus also provided separately just the scope, so you can see the changes. One thing that he and I were talking about is somehow incorporating the survey of like permanent things along River Road. We had talked about that task that had all the shoreline and all that might not be a good idea because conditions are changing. And if we don't get to it until, you know, 10 years from now, we'll have to redo it anyway. But things like property boundaries, that could be good information.
Well, I met with Angus today, that's, when I kept saying survey, I mean, what is the town home?
Okay, yeah,
Constraints of the road.
Yeah.
You have to start a basis of what you're going to be working on. And
yeah,
I understand the shoreline, oh, yeah. that's-
yeah. So maybe we
But that
just,
doesn't change the property lines.
Right.
Even if it's
That's-
shoreline.
yeah,
Let's find out what the town owns.
That's I agree with that, Chris.
so maybe we just,
So I think that was this
Yeah.
4.5.4, right?
so maybe if we just modify that so it reflects like, you know, permanent things like the property, or just say specifically property. Is a boundary survey the same thing?
Yes,
Okay,
yeah, it's just that's right now part of like a pretty inclusive list.
yeah, well, we want the rest of that for the focus areas, so that I almost wonder if a separate task in this section to do the whole road boundary surveys is appropriate.
My guess is, you know, and I'm just guessing because we don't know how the state is gonna look at this, but my guess is it's gonna be, I think it's gonna be better to try to amend an existing task rather than try to change a task.
All right.
Just or add a task.
Yeah. All right, well, if that's the intent, I mean, I can look at changing the language to reflect that, maybe just strike
We
the,
could put something like, with a primary emphasis on establishing property lines and limits of rights of way. And,
along the whole roadway.
along the whole roadway and the others focused on the focus areas.
Yeah. I think that's good. Does that sound good, Ross? Chris?
I have a bigger picture question, I mean, I look through it and I wonder if the state's gonna think that this is a bait and switch with what we'll cut out, are they gonna sit there and say, yeah, you're really not that interested?
You might,
Just seems like a lot of the stuff that the state really wanted, just stuff that takes a lot of town's time, have been cut. Just, I don't imagine they're gonna respond favorably to it. That's my biggest concern, I guess.
but I thought when we talked last time, we said, we're dictating the scope, and if they don't agree with it, then just walk away. I mean, that's what you said previously. Right. So what has changed in your thinking?
Looking at what's, I was thinking, okay, they will agree to do certain things, but I think they're gonna require you to do more than we're hoping for. And then do you? Again, I'm gonna make the presumption we're gonna get the grant. I always say, when the MBTA sites, I assume they got to include, because I think that's what you plan for and then adjust. So if they came in and gave you the grant and we cut it, are you then basically terminating the whole process? And I guess I was hopefully optimistic that they will sit there and say, well, yeah, we agree with that, but I'm not sure. Once you look at the totality, it seems like a lot of what they're going to want you to do is gonna be cut out.
Well, I think the things that are cut out are the optional things. I think we're still doing the whole scope, but just on, 3 focus areas. I mean, I don't think they'll have a problem with that, because those are the areas that were identified in the prior report that they paid for as of most concern.
Maybe I haven't done the process on it either, so they say you got a grant, you say, we'll sit down and talk about it. Maybe there's further negotiating, yeah, you sit there, so we have to have this and this back in, is that reasonable?
That's my hope. I think that's what Ellie lined out in her suggestion, is to say, we would like to focus instead on the 3 focus areas. And see what they say. There may be, they may say yes, but you have to add in. Who did the living shoreline initiative, and then at that point, I don't know, I guess, did you go back and forth the first time?
Well, there wasn't really haggling on the scope other than whatever, I think, minor changes they might have made.
Yeah.
So it was more of a confirmation of scope. So I think if it had gone differently and we said, oh, we want to change it, I'm not sure. My recollection was it moved fairly quickly from notice of award to need to confirm scope. So while there might be some time for some iterative process, I think it'd be a matter of a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, so there would be time for us to, consider if they said we have to have this.
Yeah, I just don't wanna cut it so much that they walk in and they go, oh, we're just done,
But wasn't that the whole point of this, though, that the project was too big?
Right, no, I would like to think that they would sit there and say, yes, we'd like to do this. But when you look at it, I don't want them to say, well, you're really not genuine, So if they sit there and say that, can you say, well, what would you like back? And I just don't want it to be a hard no if we start negotiating with them. That's my fear.
So, okay, then how far are you going to go?
I don't know.
Okay, that's kind of
I mean,
important.
I think you're trying to maintain as much of it as you can. We don't want to lose if they, I guess you're looking, what was the number that she came down, about half?
I think it's reduced by about a third, she said. In the memo, I didn't do the math to make sure that was accurate. It was 570, and now it's 340, so that's not quite accurate.
I guess we'll see,
Yeah,
like I said. I just sort of put myself in there. See, this was what you submitted. Now you come back and say, here's what we wanna do, and they're gonna go, wait a minute, that's a,
I know, but why did we not discuss this like a month ago instead of going down this path of,
well, because it just, when I looked at the totality of it recently, it just caught,
no,
that's all. I mean, I would like to, with the rose colored glasses, say they'll agree with it, but I'm not sure. I'm just trying to look at both sides of the issue.
Yeah. So where does this leave us? Do you want us to just see what they say and then report back, or? I mean, I guess if we have a meeting next week.
I can move it forward, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know how else to reduce the scope without. Making it definitive, like instead of a whole road, it's the 3 areas. I mean, that decision carries through the entire scope. There's no way to just reduce tasks that accomplishes the same.
No, I think you have to focus on the same areas too.
Yeah. So if they say, no, we want the whole road, what do you say?
Um. Again, I guess might chat a little about what if that kind of thing happened. Does the town have the ability? Giving very clear and tight direction. To accomplish it. You don't think so?
No,
Okay.
absolutely not. I mean, that's my opinion. I've just seen that dynamic and how things work and.
Again, maybe. I look at it more optimistically. I don't disagree with you.
Yeah. Your thoughts, Ross?
Well, I have no clue which parts of all of this, but which parts of this scope are gonna be most valued by the state. Um. Yeah, so if they come back and say, no, it's all or nothing, I don't, not sure what the. Guess we have to deliberate on that.
I have just two thoughts that are not, yeah, so if I could.
Yeah.
One is I'll give one example of something that's shown as struck, but I think it's more, so like the Living Shore Technical Committee, I think that group, I understand, has already been established, is already meeting, is expected to meet going forward. Whether this goes forward or not, but it's not a money item in the way the grant was proposed, so that. I think it could be a semantic issue with the state, but it could be reasonable to say, just because it's shown as struck, it doesn't mean that's not happening, it's just, it's not a grant funded activity. So by thinning it out, it I think does make it administratively a bit, it removes a bit of complexity, and it also, I think, obviously, Living Shore Technical Committee has the same standing as anybody else to provide input within a public process, provide written comments, participate in public meetings, workshops, but it doesn't, by leaving it out of the grant, it doesn't, potentially inadvertently elevate to where that becomes essentially like a peer review entity that is like signing off on the consultant work product. So that's one comment. The second is, I'm just gonna kind of latch onto this, public event here because I think it's indicative of some other things within the scope as well. This is shown as struck, but a literal reading of this would be that if there was a presentation at a regular meeting of the select board, that is a in-person public meeting. Public is invited, it's a public meeting, it could be a news announcement, providing progress to date, solicit input on alternatives. That doesn't need to be a big mega annex, all hands on deck, the analogy I use is with the corridor plan that we did with TEC. Kevin Dandre was here before the board back in June, he presented it, it was a slide deck, I think it was a very substantive presentation. That, something like that is this. it's kind of like how you're thinking about it or how you're managing it. So I think there's things in like, and I think this was probably struck in the interest of reducing staff impact, but I think if it's managed properly, it doesn't need to be a big impact. If this morphs into this big kind of all hands on deck, that's a different thing. And I think that kind of speaks to the project management aspect, where if it's managed by the town project manager, I think there's a way to manage these things in a way that it gets them done and is responsive to the grant, but isn't spending an inordinate amount of time at the expense of other town initiatives.
So you could see leaving that in, but just changing what the expectations for it.
I think so. Yeah, because if you read the actual words,
Yeah.
that's,
Something as simple as that takes a little bit of the sting off it from the state's perspective, I would think, because I think they're looking for this kind of thing.
right. And the fact of the matter is, we're before the board, either myself with my staff reports or other staff are before this board every meeting, providing detailed substantive updates on active projects. So in a way, I don't see this, if we were to get the grant, do this initiative, depending on how this is, how the expectations of something like this are, I don't even see it as an incremental impact if it's done as it's like, because I mean, I write memos for your packets all the time, keeping you apprised of different things. That's something that if that was done in the context of a grant, you just point to that memo or that slide deck and that's done. So I think it's really managing expectations, but also project management. If there's not the expectation that every public event is like stop everything, put everything on hold, like, because that was kind of how
Figure sandwiches.
it.
So what are the other, if you scroll up there, the other public engagement, community engagement? I don't think the boat trip is,
Yeah, I'm with you on a boat trip.
but what about the library? That's something that, I mean, Ellie had struck that. I think we had left it in initially.
Yeah, I mean, I know, Christine certainly felt that was a negligible impact on her time and I think could fit nicely within their programming, not necessarily be an incremental time impact and could be a nice complement to the initiative.
Mhm.
So that's one I wouldn't have any heartburn over.
Okay. All right, anything else you see, I guess, that could be left in that would be appealing to the state? That wouldn't cause any impact?
I mean, is there sense in, just as part of the negotiation process, leaving in some things that we don't mind caving on?
I think that's what we're doing now. Or did you have something?
I meant like letting the state say, oh, I want this event, and we already know we can concede that.
Yeah, these like events, I don't think are that significant, but if they say you have to do the whole road instead of the 3 areas, then that is significant, and that's like the whole basis of our managing scope. They did mention wasn't there something about the Abenaki?
Mhm.
No. Yeah, I think we had basically cut out all of these kind of fluff things, but that and may well be what they want. So if you're okay with giving in on those things, if they're like general, that could be helpful. I mean, the only reason we'd be doing it is for the grant. We wouldn't do that if we were doing this project without the grant, but it's not a big time.
Right, that's how the grant should have been approached in the first place,
Right.
which we've learned at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, just a library event and,
Yeah.
year two, that's,
As well.
that come back in with no.
So is there a corollary year 2 event here for like public?
It's a little, it's more specific in how it's written with the kind of, the specific focus on nature-based workshops. I definitely think that the state prioritizes that in the grant. I think the way it's written,
Well, this is the one we have in plan stuff,
Well, yeah,
but the next item is the public engagement. Oh, virtual public meeting. I mean, there are public events for this one.
Mhm.
All right,
one thing I will say is it looks, I think as I'm looking, because I did a simple compare and merge,
Yeah.
you know, like just a quick. As I'm looking at it, I'm seeing some things that, for instance, are moves that show, it shows more red than it really is, so. And I did that just because, to be honest, I did this during the planning board meeting, just because it was like something to do while I was waiting for my hearing to come up, so. It was just a word compare and merge. I could go through and without changing anything substantive, just so it doesn't appear so red.
Mhm.
There's still a fair amount of red, but
but some things were moved. Does it show up differently if it's moved to?
if it's done properly, the green, yeah, the green, this is moved.
Okay,
So I
Yeah,
think as simple as the library, components. I think the state would wanna have, they're looking for some community engagement, and that's not a big one, so I think that might help.
yeah.
okay. Did you change the language on that one, Tess? I saw that you started.
What I just put in a comment as like a reminder to go back to it, and I'll do the same thing for these, it probably won't do a comment, yeah, okay. The store.
Let me make a comment on the overall,
Sure.
just like discussed with Angus earlier today. If the town is successful and the grant moves forward with this, it's gotta be critically understood. Christine and the town staff is doing the project, it's not the committee. And the information goes in and out through that conduit to control. Otherwise, it's gonna become a mess.
I totally agree. I'm just not sure how to make that happen. There's a long precedent. That we're,
Precedents don't come from,
but in order for that to be pushed back on, like everybody has to be doing it and saying the same thing. So, I mean,
let me get them in agreement before we sign off.
Yeah.
Accept the grant, because that's the only way I would consider the grant. The sloppiness of everybody doing what they want, when they want, where they want, directing. Other people, it's not appropriate, we have town staff to do that, and that's what this grant is for.
so how would that work? I mean. Yeah, I mean, literally, you want to have a meeting with everybody before we sign it? I
It's
don't
gotta be
know.
that level of understanding, why
Yeah,
why commit to a grant that could just wreak havoc?
I agree. I'm just not sure logistically how that works. I mean, how much time is there, I guess, between?
Probably not much, but I do think one thing Chris and I just were chewing on, and I think this is viable, is, you know, once a vendor, was selected, you know, there could be contractual language making clear that the direction, the feedback comes through the project manager, and that, you know, that's, you know, brought in basically through traditional channels of public comment, through public meetings, through public correspondence, through circulation of drafts for public review or comments received, which at least is on a episodic basis to allow between those check-in points to allow staff and the consultant to work diligently day in and day out rather than, you know, responding to feedback day in and day out, which really does undercut the focus on the work and the ability to work efficiently. So I do think that can be done, at least as far as the consultants, so that they understand that they're incorporating feedback received through the town, which would of course reflect public comments received. There would not be anything not shared. It's really about the method and frequency of sharing. I think is a major issue.
I just feel like that's gonna put pressure on staff.
It will. I think if we get the grant, if we go forward, I think we should be fully prepared that, I think Christine, for one, if this would be the majority of her workload and possibly the large majority of her workload for the period of time. So, you know, I will say some of the other things that we have on the horizon that are kind of project management type things. We do have some other senior staff, including the new town planner, who I have high hopes is someone who can bring real value, and some of those like the town center initiative. I don't think it, really needs to, I don't think this needs to undercut this. One of the unfortunate things about the prior grant having been squeezed from 2 years to one was that it happened to overlap with what had been seen as a really key year in the age conditions assessment. And I think that contributed to that project essentially taking a year longer than it might have.
Yeah.
So, I think that, and that's, I think what we're guarding against is to make sure if we do accept this, that we're not, de facto pushing aside other things that are really very, very important.
So who would work on the page then?
I think, between now and the spring, I think it's gonna be much more of getting the capital program updated to fully reflect it and then preparing the statement of interest. I don't really see that as something that Christine would need to have much involvement in at all. It's really more of like a facilities thing. I could see like me, Brian, Jonathan, even Caitlin Parker, and the school. I mean, ultimately Jonathan and Tuckett is gonna be their statement of interest, and they've got a lot of experience with MSBA. I think if that ends up getting incorporated into the MSBA process, and we're then faced with all the timelines we're seeing with Whittier, that's a whole different conversation. But if a statement of interest is submitted in the spring, I believe, isn't it that we would learn in like December of next year, whether that's accepted in the program?
Yeah.
And then, so it would really probably not really begin in terms of major time impact until 2 summers from now,
Okay,
which would be right around when this grant was ending,
okay, good.
ideally.
Yeah,
This is no different than a building or a construction project as far as how it should be handled. Like if you go into a construction site, you don't have the right to go over and tell each subtrade what they should be doing. It's got to go through the project manager of the job. That's where this should be run.
I know the challenging thing though is that the committee was the primary group on the first grant as well as writing this application. So this is like a paradigm shift. I'm not disagreeing, but it's gonna take some work.
But they can conduct their business in their open meeting with the consultant there, and that's the feedback, not outside of these meetings. And
Right.
so shouldn't be that hard to. Well, shouldn't be hard to understand, I guess, but.
I do hope that this work that you and we have been doing, I know not everyone's absorbed it, but I do hope that, this will help convey that,
But we have to stick to it.
oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, we're having a tough time dancing around it tonight, so
I know.
that's the problem.
Yeah. All right, anything else on that? For now? All right. Conceptual design for Newbury Town Hall Crossing, potential next steps, so I guess Angus, you're just looking for feedback from us.
Yeah, I mean, we received this prior to the end of the fiscal year, because it was the primary deliverable for that crossing, which I think Ross, before you were on the board, but we got the state earmark, so this was done entirely with grant funding. And it was kind of an opportunistic thing where we got an earmark, we happened to be in the corridor planning process, and so I talked with the board, and we all felt this would be a good crossing to expend some resources on. So as part of their scope, we got survey work and we got a conceptual plan. And I will say that what you're looking at is either version 3 or version 4. There's a number of, we had a number of meetings with myself, Butch and Christine, where we gave feedback to TEC. And so at a staff level, we're very happy with this as a conceptual plan. A lot of work ahead as it went further in the design process, but we think it's a good plan. We haven't yet rolled this out publicly and engaged neighbors and so forth. But we'll be doing that. So now that we know there's going to be a new earmark, it's going to be some time before that's under contract. I did get a response from the senator's office today basically saying the agency administering this earmark would be DOT, so to contact them. So I sent an email to Eddie Bates, who was the point of contact for one of our other grants. I don't know if it's him or if it's someone else. He just said DOT. I'm like, oh, great. So anyway, but I would guess probably 6 to 10 weeks from now, roughly, we will have a contract between the town and the Commonwealth for $50,000 for the purpose of planning, design, and construction of crosswalks on 113. So when that time comes, I'm gonna wanna move pretty quickly toward getting that actually under contract with our vendor to then move that forward. So my purpose in bringing this forward tonight was just to advance the discussion of, we have a good concept plan for this one, we got a good concept plan for this one. Town center, my personal opinion, we don't do anything on that because we already have that under contract, and that over the course of the next 12 to 18 months, we'll have a concept plan there. So if we have another 50 grand, do you want to see it invested in this location, some other location, like the Bachelor Street crossing right here? And you don't decide tonight, but I just wanted to kind of advance keep this on your radar, because it's this will be either the fourth or the fifth state budget year in a row where we've got an earmark anywhere from $20, $25, $50,000, and that has really allowed us to make the progress we've made on the corridor, and we want to keep that going.
So you put a tickle me with a funny comment, because I look at these, I'm saying high school and Knicks. Until we still know what's happening with that, I know it does mention it, but I'm not sure that's enough to address it or how that works. Town center said then the control library, town hall, until we find out where that's all going to invest significant more funds, we don't know.
Well, in terms of where that's going, I mean, we know there's a library. We don't know.
I mean, the working group pretty much agreed that town hall's not an option. So whatever change would happen within the existing footprint.
Okay, but again, when you just said out here,
Yeah,
that's one, every time I wanna walk, no cars never stop you there.
right.
And I don't know, and then you got the conflict with the ones right here, so I think from here. I was right out front of town hall, is it this one and up to whatever the next street?
So I guess it comes to, if we did that, we would be getting this crossing to a higher level of concept design, but it's still concept design. As opposed to if you take the middle high school or the library town hall, that could allow you to actually get that to like 25% design or beyond. So it's a matter of, do you want to get one further ahead, or do you want to keep everything kind of at that?
When you're only listed to 3, so that's what I was thinking, until you mentioned others.
Oh, yeah, no, all the nodes, any of the nodes within that corridor study. So what I'm trying to find, that was whichever was the date, was it June 12th that we had Kevin Dandrade? I think it might have been, but he had his slides in here. And we had it first, right?
Yeah.
Let's see. No, this was the concept plan just for this one. Somewhere in one of the packets in the second half of the fiscal year, there's the slide deck from Kevin. I want to say it was more like February, wasn't it?
Is it June 26th and technical to BC?
No, that was the end work product, but I don't think that had this is the one I had up that had all the, like, this is like the technical. There's a slide deck. I think it was February.
If you really wanted, you could look at that
I
master.
don't think it's critical, all
Well, anyway, but you remember the slide deck, and it went through and so that shows you where we are on design. So there was a concept for this one. It was not as well advanced as those other two, but it showed, for instance, I believe it showed a consolidated crosswalk instead of right now there's one at each driveway. It showed a single crosswalk, which would more be with like the push button, like more of a prominent, instead of having two like lesser crosswalks, one more prominent crosswalk. It had sidewalk connectivity across the frontage of this building to each of the driveways, but in order to meet the state standards, you can't have a sidewalk to nowhere. So it had a sidewalk going up into the town halls are better connected up here. Town office building and another on the housing authority side. To connect to the actual, so it turned into similar to what we saw at Page Crossing. You have that ancillary project because it has to tie into something. Yeah,
I mean, it's just something else to think about, the other ones, because I only thought of the three on your list, so I think that's good.
I would favor the library and town hall one, I mean, that,
I like that one because I think it's probably more of a safety issue.
yeah,
Than anything else, where it's known to be kind of a blind curve. And whether the library changes or doesn't change, the library's gonna be there and,
in the town hall, I mean. They have to hire a detail anytime there's an event. Because of the safety issues.
I was gonna say, if you want a public drive, that.
No, I can't get
Out there, right, okay.
here, we'll try to do it. So,
All right,
actually, you know what? Yeah, here it is. Here it is. This was from November, so. This shows kind of the focus area, the focus areas. Yeah, so this is the concept and it's come a little further, but it's basically the same. Town center, we didn't do anything because we knew there was a separate study. No, there's a better one for. They did a better drawing for, yeah, this is for, yeah. It was something early this year, it was like January, February. And it shows, so I'll do that, I'll put that in a future packet.
good.
And, but I think, yeah, we're a ways away from needing to make a decision. But ideally, I mean, let's say the board says, you know, we're all for crossing X. I could then, once I have an airtight assurance with the state that this is real money, and I think I pretty well do, but I'd like it a little tighter. Once they say, yes, you will have 50,000, just a matter of getting the contract in place, which might be 8 or 10 weeks. I would then call Kevin Dandrade and say, please put together a proposal for me for $50,000 of work at this location. Take it as far as you can, and then he gets a proposal of if that's gonna include survey, or if that's gonna include 25%, or maybe even 75% design, and then we'd be in a position to actually sign a contract with them almost as soon as the ink is dry on the grant agreement with the state.
Mhm.
That's kind of where I wanna be.
Okay.
Well, do we want to just go ahead with the library one?
That's the one I favor, do you have an opinion else?
No, I would go along with the library.
Makes me get it further towards process rather than getting
Yeah.
a bunch of things moved a little,
Right.
right? That makes a good,
I think this is an exciting plan. I think that the public will, I expect to respond very favorably to this idea of moving this crosswalk and having that activated blinker. I think this idea of essentially reclaiming what's a paved areas landscaping will have some controversy because parking is so constrained, and I've told Kevin, like, we can't afford to lose any parking. So this, you know, that may not survive. I think aesthetically it could be really nice, but practically. But as it advanced further in design, there might be other issues that we want to look at as to whether, you know, for instance, Trainfield Road, whether we might want to do anything there to try to optimize parking capacity there. You know, as it goes further in the design process, it goes, you know, you get to the much more detail, but I do think as a starting point, this is a good starting point.
Okay. Review of questions from town council on the easement.
Yeah, I was hoping to just get a little more direction, just so I can give Sharon some concrete answers, and she can go ahead and start drawing up the legal document.
Okay, so easement only for pedestrian. And vehicle access or parking rights or other rights of way. I would say only for pedestrian and vehicular access. Right, they have parking, but,
I would assume, that's what I would have said too, but
yeah, okay. Are we going to grant them the ability to improve the road? Thoughts? So, you know,
okay, well, they're already taken care of, but I have a.
yeah,
another-
so we'll be continuing to do maintenance of plowing, snow and ice,
So,
okay? So here's the consideration question. I think it's worth a conversation if they would consider, you know, changing the land ownership under the annex.
Definitely worth the conversation.
I would say that's the only way I would move forward to putting the easement. One chance to negotiate it.
Yeah, I think the schedule is not our friend in this case, though.
Get
I
a
wouldn't
letter of
want,
intent and a commitment on that.
what's that?
Get them to have a letter of intent to commit to. And
Yeah.
it doesn't have to have this document, doesn't have to just have the intent.
Yeah.
Shouldn't be a lot.
Angus, you want me to follow up with Tracy on that? Get a night.
I can, I'll see if I can get to it. If I can't, I mean, I can do it when I get back, but, I'm certainly not gonna be able to talk to her, you know, the next day.
Yeah,
I mean, I could, but I got 50 hours of work to do the next day, so I can't add to that. That's, but I might be able to dash off an email.
okay,
And if I do that, I could copy you, and then if you had time for a call with her before I get back.
okay,
in town,
that sounds
you
good.
know, but
It'd be good to at least.
I'll at least get the ball rolling. That takes two minutes, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what about liability insurance?
I definitely wanna talk to, we actually have our meeting with our insurance rep coming up for our annual review, so that's a great thing to talk about.
Okay. All right,
Great, that's all I needed there.
all right, correspondence, doesn't seem like there's any items for next meeting agenda, so. Chris, you said the. Speaker. For the opioid, or update on that meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Plus the other 7 or 8 being previously, you can see.
When did you give them to me?
I can send even at the farming, then we'll address town names for farming.
I thought we were gonna assign the,
Oh,
oh,
we had
that's,
a discussion on it, so
well, I thought we said that in a meeting. We did talk about that. Anyway.
okay. I sent you a number, I have to keep track of them, I remember the others. Oh, about any property we require to have rights to still pursue water over time, should be a policy on that at some point.
I think we talked about that as well. We didn't discuss it in depth, but I mentioned it.
We just mentioned it as a topic of future discussion.
All right. Duly noted, falling down on my job.
I'm not gonna say that.
So do you have a separate list of all the things you've asked me to do for?
No, I just sent them out, so they're getting done.
If you could share.
I sent, as they pop up in my P-brain, I send them on.
All right, I need to just write them down when I see them then. All right, I move to go into executive session. On MGL chapter 38, section 21A2.
Second,
In favor? You aye?
while I.
Goodbye.
Right.
All right, so. For those participating by Zoom, the board has voted to go into executive session. It will come back into open session for the sole purpose of adjournment. Thank you.